Chapter 1068, The True Strongest. Chapter 1068, The True Strongest. Proofreader, Papatonks. What? That's... Bailey Jingtian squinted, his body jerked, looking with total disbelief at how his brothers were taken by the darkness. SSS. The sizzling sounds of the flames gave the impression the fire was growing, yet it showed no movement. In but a blink of an eye, all life had been swallowed by these black flames. Bailey Jingtian hovered above, his brow seeping with sweat. The attack he got ready at the tip of his finger shook along with it in hesitation. It was failure on his part for not taking into account that Zhuo Fan had maybe another strange skill under his sleeve, one that proved even deadlier, taking 8 strong princes down. How can this be? Just what is that black fire? How the hell can it prevent 8 soul harmony experts from even letting a sound out as it took them? Bailey Jingtian looked at the black swirling dome of flames with a heavy brow, his calm now replaced with fear. His mind might reject such a foreign feeling, but his heart wouldn't stop hammering in his chest. Wu Qingqiu's group were stunned. They knew Zhuo Fan was the best, that he had a counter for the 8 princes, but not even they imagined it would be so clean and deadly. Their eyes were almost falling out of their sockets. These were the same 8 Bailey princes that wiped the floor with them moments ago. So how then when Zhuo Fan entered the picture, they became lambs, giving him an easy time dispatching them from this world? No, they're no lambs, but Zhuo Fan being too strong, stronger than we can imagine. This is the true strongest disciple in the lands, the next invincible sword. Wu Qingqiu and Yan Imo sighed, just a few years and we can no longer compare. Yeah, elder brother's eyes got stronger. Yi Lin sighed as well, shaking his head, only a lick of black fire almost got me killed last time, but now he could let out so much more. Even I would be finished in an instant. Elder brother's strength is beyond anyone's. There's none among his peers in the entire world that can match up to him. Yi Lin glanced at Bailey Jingtian above with a hint of disdain. Bailey Jingtian felt the taunt on his skin and met his eyes. But then again, Zhuo Fan was tougher than anything he'd seen. Bailey Jingtian stared at the black fire hard, putting more power in his sword wave. Ouyang Chongqing and Murong Shui on the other hand, were gaping at the hissing thunder flame. They knew Zhuo Fan was above them and their only slim chance at survival, but it turned out the hope was bigger than ever. It became a guarantee, so much so their fears were gone, fear brought on by Bailey Jingtian. They could tell as well that he no longer was as cocky in the face of those twisting flames. The devil is terrifying. I wanted to remove him myself, but now I see how naive I've been. Murong Shui's feelings were all over the place. The devil is not something I can ever hope to take down. But it has to be done, before he becomes the next invincible sword and brings hell on earth. Murong Shui hoped and worried, filled with constant dissonance. Who? At the next light breeze, the thunder flames vanished like they were never there, leaving behind nothing at all. There was no sign of life, not from the previous 8 princes and neither from the earth. The only one standing was Zhuo Fan in center holding Chu Qingqing with care, unaffected by the attack. Zhuo Fan hummed with a soft smile, to which Chu Qingqing relaxed and calmed down. Zhuo Fan smiled brighter, his humming slowly stopping. Chu Qingqing smiled in his arms, drifting into a peaceful sleep. The onlookers blinked, more shocked than ever of Zhuo Fan's strength. They just witnessed how he punched the second strongest prince to oblivion and now how he erased the other 8 from existence. All of it was done not on account of it being the best way to deal with them, but only to soothe Chu Qingqing's heart. This was called killing with a smile. The guy spared them no attention to the attackers, not even a thought, and yet he killed them all. Now that was strength. 8 went at him from all sides, yet his wife took priority still. What did that make of them? Bugs, annoying and pesky bugs. He not once considered them any danger to even touch him. Everyone's gazes shifted after this event, changing the way they looked at Zhuo Fan, with respect and bafflement. Zhuo Fan was like an immortal standing leagues above them, not something mere mortals could ever hope to even catch a glimpse of. This was a level beyond anything they could fathom. They looked at him with shock and daze, even hoping that maybe they could attain his impossible position. Morone Shui was the same, having the odd feeling that Zhuo Fan was not the devastating demon she thought him to be, her perception of him now soaring higher in her mind. All eyes were looking lost, forgetting the time and place even as Zhuo Fan only stared at one person only. Qing Cheng, I'll take you to safety. Tracing her gentle sleeping face, Zhuo Fan smiled with love and care. Whoosh! There was a sharp whistle just then and thunder boomed as a purple sword wave of incredible power shot for the lovely couple. The pressure from it was so huge, the breath of the others caught in their throat, unable to move from the weight, watching with shocked eyes as the stones around them were being turned to dust and floating about. It's so strong it breaks the world's laws. So if it lands, there'll be nothing left of him. Everyone gasped, jerked awake by the sudden change. Ouyang Chongqing cursed, Bailey Jingtian, you damn bastard. Have you no dignity to sneak attack? Yet you still call yourself the best disciple in the lands? Humph, standing by now will really mean that I lost that title. Bailey Jingtian cared not for his empty words, shouting as his gaze turned mad, Zhuo Fan, let's see you dodge Sundering Sword Apex. From all that transpired, he understood that he held no chance in fighting Zhuo Fan alone. So while this might be dishonorable, he still chose to go for a sneak attack. The timing also coincided with Zhuo Fan's worst moment, unable to move as he wished. By attacking from afar as well, he avoided the same miserable fate as his brothers. Zhuo Fan had to take it, the outcome based on their strength. But with him being in the Genesis stage while the enemy in the Soul Harmony stage, winning was guaranteed, no? Ha ha ha, with me on the high ground and him below, it's perfect. Bailey Jingtian's heart brimmed with confidence. A shame he didn't understand Zhuo Fan's at all. Divine Eye of the Void had 7 stages, and coupled with the apocalyptic Thunder Flame Eye, he had many variations of which he only showed 2. Who? The mighty sword energy shot for Zhuo Fan, unleashing sharp winds as it passed. Yet he still didn't budge, only his face grew colder, murmuring, a bystander dares to interfere when my wife is sleeping. What did you say? Bailey Jingtian asked in shock. Zhuo Fan closed his eyes, a cruel smile forming. Then he flashed them open, shining brighter than ever. His right eye glowed in 2 golden halos and his left contained the wild black thunder flame. I said. Zhuo Fan shouted, die. Divine Eye of the Void 2nd stage, Thunder Flame Void Annihilation. Whoosh! A beam of black crackling flames shot at the skies, straight for Bailey Jingtian. Chapter 1069, Waiting for Death. Chapter 1069, Waiting for Death. Proofreader, Papatonks. Bam! An earth-shaking explosion sounded when the 2 powers collided, though it hardly showed anything spectacular. That was because in that instant, the shockwave got burned to nothing by the black flames. Next was the sword wave's turn, starting at the edge, burned away. In no time at all, the flames ate 1/3 of the attack and were still going strong until there was hardly anything left of the sword wave. How is this possible? Bailey Jingtian gasped, sweat trickling down his brow. Zhuo Fan has many more aces, with the black thunder flame even countering his sword energy, one that had an even greater power. He could not see that the thunder flame was backed by the Divine Eye of the Void 2nd stage, a move that broke any barriers, the strongest attack of this move set, only made deadlier with the fire. The Sundering Sword art could be as strong as it wanted, but since he was not a sword king, he could do nothing in the face of these devouring flames. Bailey Jingtian rushed to make signs to strengthen the sword wave even as it was failing in the confrontation. The thunder flame was invincible, smashing through the rest of the attack and reaching his chest. The imminent danger made the proximity of an early death much more pronounced. Bailey Jingtian wanted to fall back, but it was too late. In panic, his hand flashed and a silvery sword appeared. Bang! With a loud boom, the clash resulted in actually stopping the black beam of flame, saving him. Bailey Jingtian grinned and looked smug, he, I found your black fire's weakness. It might be amazing, but it's nowhere near able to destroy everything in the world. This permafrost sword of mine isn't up to the level of the 5 divine swords, but it is a 12th grade spiritual weapon, housing a spirit from a 10 miles deep icy pond, turning it into a weapon just below a divine sword. No matter how creepy your black flame is, it won't reach me. Without this ace of yours, you can do nothing either, ha ha ha. Everyone jerked and turned to Zhuofan. His brow shook, squinting. A spiritual weapon with a spirit is a sacred weapon, but unless it's of the 6th grade, it still won't stop the apocalyptic thunderflame. Zhuofan smirked. Bailey Jingtian's face twitched. He still has a way out of this mess. He only shouted back there to taunt Zhuofan, to get the guy to take out more of his cards. But the reaction only baffled him. Is it dismay or an insidious plot? Zhuofan soon answered him, not through dismay or some scheme, since none were needed. He showed that the rare 12th grade spiritual weapon would prove a dashed hope in saving him. Sharp cracking sound echoed that caught Bailey Jingtian's undivided attention. He watched, frozen, as his glittering poker sported black cracks. Black flames erupted from them and crawled all over it like maggots. SSS. Bailey Jingtian's eyes shook and gasped from horror. The lifeline he depended on was shaken hard. The sword. Boom. The precious 12th grade spiritual weapon was blown into useless bits. While the thunder flame was like a bloodthirsty animal eating everything. The flame turned into a snake, shooting for Bailey Jingtian with the promise of a cruel death. Bailey Jingtian's legs turned to jelly, his face a mask of disbelief and shock. His 12th grade spiritual weapon barely fended off the thunderflame's savagery. What the hell that thing even is? It's monstrous. Bailey Jingtian wailed on the inside, but with the thunderflame closing in fast, he flung his head to the side to let the fire pass, looking like a whipped dog. It was an action most unbefitting of the crown prince of the Sword Star Empire. But life was always more precious than how others saw him. Seeing the black thunderflame fly away, Bailey Jingtian was sweating buckets as he gasped. The fear was still palpable from his brush with death. But at least he came out on top, and alive. Bailey Jingtian only took one of Zhuofan's moves and already was keenly aware how deadly he was. He almost died back there. Looking down at Zhuofan, Bailey Jingtian turned heavy. He found none of the bragging from before, realizing how close he was to dying. Should he try and slip away? Haha, he believed that the moment he turned his back, another thunderflame would come and he'd die for sure. He was focusing all his energy on the problem and didn't have the time to be distracted with some empty threats. Zhuofan was like a reaper, never taking him out of his sight. The slightest mistake would be his grave. Since escape was out and fighting didn't help, what then? Stall. Bailey Jingtian was a crown prince through and through, sharp and educated. In this dangerous situation, against such an abomination, waiting was the best choice. He just had to dodge anything Zhuofan threw at him, that should be enough to keep him alive. As for escaping, he could not, lest he presented his open back. He needed to wait for any of the Sword Kings to come and he'd win. Bailey Jingtian cautiously looked at Zhuofan, unmoving. Damn that witch Bailey Yu, sending fake information. You call that a soul harmony stage level? Curses, not even a Genesis stage expert is as dangerous as this freak. That damn broad got all the princes killed. Bailey Yu had indeed stated the truth, since she only saw Zhuofan fight Murong Shui that one time, when he let her. She had no way of knowing his true strength. Zhuofan paused, seeing him just standing there. His eyes flashed with realization and chuckled. Bailey Jingtian was confused. Why isn't he attacking? It only works better for me, so why is he waiting as well? He doesn't care about a Sword King coming over. He's only going to get himself killed wasting time. Bailey Jingtian was mystified, standing there dumbly. The people below noticed the situation and pointed at him with mocking smiles. Look at the fool, he's frozen stiff. Bailey Jingtian's eye twitched, feeling the disdain on his skin, but move he did not. He just stared the devil in the eye as always. What do bugs know? This is tactic. All methods are fair so long as they bring me victory, that's why stalling is the best choice. Humph, uncultured swine. Though it was obvious this crown prince's ingenious tactic did not go noticed by the common folk, the jeering continued. Even the unmoving Joie, like himself, was chuckling and shaking his head. The crown prince was utterly confused. He'd get why the bugs were stupid, but why would he act the same? Ah! He suddenly cried out, still confused, but now in serious pain. Looking back, he was shocked at what he saw. How can? SSS. The black thunder flame was burning the pristine hand of the Grand Crown Prince, working its way up his shoulder. The audience laughed harder than ever, in ridicule. Ouyang Chongqing was the loudest, looking for the perfect moment to cut him down a peg. It turns out the strongest disciple in the lands, the great Crown Prince of Sword Star Empire, is nothing but a moron. He didn't even notice his sleeve was burning, only when his hand caught on fire. It's definitely part of the sharp instincts of the best, ha ha ha. I heard many say of waiting for death, but only now I get what they meant, ha ha ha. Joie Fan's patronizing was far more savage, attacking the Crown Prince at his worst moment. Chapter 1070, I just didn't say it. Chapter 1070, I just didn't say it. Proofreader, Papatonks. Ah! The black flame-licking Bailey Jingtian's arm ate more and more of it as it spread, going from his arm to his shoulder to finish the job. Bailey Jingtian shook his arm all over the place, while not forgetting to howl at the skies. The searing pain stabbing his heart and making him break out in sweat, his face a twisted mask of his sharp features. Yet the worst wasn't the pain, having gone through extensive training to learn to bear with extreme pain. No matter what he tried, flicking his hand or using yuan qi, it would stick to him like a leech, horrifying him. He could not snuff it out. Another image then surfaced in his mind, that of being cooked alive, here and now. Bailey Jingtian's heart raced in terror, panicking and wailing, but nothing worked. Seeing the black flame unaffected by anything he tried, his heart sank in despair, about to have a mental breakdown. Regret was eating his insides for not being just a wee bit more careful, for not even noticing how the black beam of flames grazed his clothes. He would have removed the sleeve and easily dealt with the danger rather than be in so much pain. His real regret, however, was about Joie Fan. The guy showcased power beyond anything he'd seen, like a demon archon. That made him obsessed with reading his every move to counter them, thinking that he could survive that way. When a savage tiger was eyeing you as prey, you would ignore the ants gnawing at your feet. In face of great danger, people ignore anything but the source of said danger. Alas, the wee ant turned out to carry a fatal poison as it bit him. He had fallen for it and could only wait for the poison to spread and kill him. It was no less deadly than the tiger, though way more painful. A pity he did not immediately notice it. That did not include the audience, who was very clear on what was happening and enjoying his plight before he even realized it. Joie Fan scratched his nose amidst Bailey Jingtian's incessant wailing. Though he couldn't fight a smile, I could tell by the way he dodged that it wasn't a clean one and the flame stuck to his sleeve, but I just didn't say it. I saw it too. It was but a spark of fire that only grew with time. Yi Lin's face shook. I just didn't feel like sharing, seeing him so focused. The wounded guys on the ground looked at each other, then at Bailey Jingtian raving around with taunting smiles. Ouyang Chongqing patted Yi Lin's shoulder, complaining theatrically, "Brother Yi, that's not right. We're all righteous cultivators here and a win only counts when done fairly. How could you keep it from him that his sleeve had something so deadly stuck to it? That's not how a righteous and honest man acts. If it were me, I would have instantly warned him of his sleeve so we could compete in a real fight." "You don't say. Why the silence all this time then?" Yi Lin gave him a patronizing smile. Ouyang Chongqing smiled back, looking at the rest with his head high and using a scornful tone, "Didn't I say it already? As a righteous cultivator, I should be honest, but having fought with the Crown Prince and not found him to be one of us. Joie Fan is a demonic cultivator, so anything goes. So in the spirit of fairness, I had to keep silent when his sleeve was struck, even signaling everyone to keep quiet as well. It wouldn't do for the audience to meddle in the fight of real experts. So we just stood and watched instead. Crown Prince, you may continue the fight, we promise to be nothing more than spectators and never interfere, ha ha ha. Screw you. You rotten bastards, ack. Bailey Jingtian was struggling in the air still, with the fire reaching his shoulder and the pain only growing in intensity. Nothing he tried worked in removing it. While he was here burning alive, those fools below were having the time of their lives at his expense, cursing and mocking him. He snapped back, but that only got them to mock him harder, finding him weak. You hopeless case dare raise your tone at us? Hee hee, go ahead, not like you have any future left by the looks of it. We'll just wait for you to burn out while you dance around like a monkey and raving, humph. Zhuo Fan smiled, ignoring him and returning with Chu Qingqing to the others on the ground. The black thunder flame didn't stop till all was ash. Even a sword king had to be careful around it, let alone a mere Genesis stage cultivator. There was no point in minding a dead man walking. Grinning evilly, Zhuo Fan ignored the cawing in his ear, walking with his wife. Whoosh! Just then, a sword wave flashed through the sky and Bailey Jingtian's shoulder. Whoosh! The arm sword, engulfed in black flames. Bailey Jingtian felt his right arm gone, with blood gushing out of his shoulder. A tall man appeared next to him, pressing his acupoints and stopping the bleeding. But even that short moment of bleeding out was enough to cover half his clothes in it. Bailey Jingtian's eyes shook, jerking his head at where his right hand used to be. The sword wave had taken it from him. Crown Prince, I had no choice but to do it. The man spoke casually. Zhuo Fan paused and frowned. He looked back and then clenched his fists. Beat the brat and the big guy shows up. The Crown Prince was dealt with, then a Sword King had to show up. The others could pretty much guess who arrived to help Sword Star's Crown Prince. Their mocking smiles froze and gulped hard before turning a pleading look and hopeful gaze to Zhuo Fan. Bro, you made light work of the Crown Prince, but can you handle a Sword King as well? Zhuo Fan took his time to breathe in and out, holding Chu Qingqing while walking over to them without any hint of anxiety. The man's eyes twinkled, his eyes bright. Bailey Jingtian looked at Zhuo Fan with nothing but hatred and fury. He clenched his only fist, the nails digging into his palm as he roared, Thunder Sword King, kill him. Kill him now. Crown Prince, you're hurt and we should first treat your wound. Bailey Yulei got an idea of what happened by looking at the man below and the Crown Prince's fury. He, however, looked for an excuse not to follow the Crown Prince's order. Bailey Jingtian was unaware of the Thunder Sword King's weird attitude of not being interested in taking Zhuo Fan's head back to Patriarch and earning his reward. For some reason, the Thunder Sword King was more interested in the Crown Prince's condition. But Bailey Jingtian was beyond reason, rage having taken over his faculties. Thunder Sword King, listen here. The Patriarch wants him dead. You have to get his head. I may not be able to do it myself, but I'm content with seeing him die. Bailey Yulei did not move, only looked around. Zhuo Fan ignored the threat above, walking with Chu Qingqing to the others and taking out a vial. He opened it and let green pills fly to his friends. Eat it, then take Qingqing and leave. Giving Chu Qingqing to Shui Ruohua, Zhuo Fan spoke calmly. Wu Qingqiu rushed to say, but what about you? Someone must keep the Sword King here. Zhuo Fan stood and turned around with conviction. His eyes shone golden and black. Chapter 1071, Insist on Leaving. Chapter 1071, Insist on Leaving. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh! Zhuo Fan's sharp gaze met Bailey Yulei's eyes, making him shiver and feel threatened. That the kid actually had what it took to kill him. How is this possible? He may be strong, but only in the soul harmony stage. How can I feel danger from him? Bailey Yulei glanced at the one-armed Crown Prince and his heart sank. Not just an average soul harmony expert, or the Crown Prince wouldn't suffer so much. And this is because I came on time, or the Crown Prince would have left this world. Bailey Yulei stared back at Zhuo Fan, feeling conflicted. The boy is nothing like the bluffer Yu said he is. He is inscrutable and hard to deal with. Bailey Yulei's brow shook, just standing there and facing Zhuo Fan as he did the same. The others had recovered with Zhuo Fan's pills and could at least move now. They left this danger zone while tending to Chu Qingqing. Though it was now unclear if Zhuo Fan could take on a Sword King this time. Sword Kings were the peak of power in the central area, at the level of Morong Lai and Ouyang Ling Tian. Zhuo Fan was the best disciple in the lands, even making a mockery of the central area's 10 princes, but he was just that, a disciple. He still had a long way to go before facing these seasoned veterans. The odds of getting out alive from a Sword King were practically nil. They all worried seeing Zhuo Fan facing such a danger with a straight back. Shui Ruohua was reminded of how Zhuo Fan had the girls go ahead while he stopped 500 people from following them, ending up fighting to death. She teared up as she pulled Chu Qingqing harder. Qingqing, today is just like that day. I just hope that this time he won't disappear like before. Zhuo Fan frowned as the others just stood there and shouted, "Why are you standing here? Go! Brother Zhuo, you have saved our lives. This gratitude I shall never forget." Ouyang Chongqing spoke firmly and with pride, "Now you are facing a strong enemy and I'm not about to let you do it alone. This is not right. I am no coward. We may not be of much help, but we can at least cheer and share death and life together. Don't worry, Brother Zhuo, for you have us right behind you." Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes, ticked off by this pompous fool, cursing, "Are you mental? You know you're of no help, so what damn use will you have? I told you to get Qingqing to safety and I'll be grateful. Why would you stay to die when I'm giving my life? To hell with dying with you. Who'll look after my wife? Oh, right. Brother Zhuo, I am not like Yi Lin, I'll be sure to complete your request. I will definitely repay the favor." Ouyang Chongqing nodded and cupped his hands. Yi Lin was annoyed. What was that? How are you different? Brother Zhuo entrusted his wife to you, and what happened? You had the enemy endanger her and take her hostage, not doing anything right. I am not so unreliable like you and will fulfill my mission. Brother Zhuo, I won't let you down. You only know how to prance around. The only reason they stopped us is because you didn't let us leave. Sister-in-law would have long been safe by now. You shouldn't cast blame so easily. How can you blame me? Think about it. If I could find you, wouldn't the princes find you at some point as well? I was saying. Yi Lin and Ouyang Chongqing were like natural enemies, fighting even now in this serious situation. Zhuo Fan popped a vein. Why do these fools always argue? Alone they were fine, but together they ruined everything. Bailey Jingtian laughed at seeing them bickering like fools. Don't you even think about running now. Thunder Sword King, go. Let's see how long you'll last. Bailey Jingtian pointed at them with hatred, kill them all. I will be sure to commend you to the Patriarch. The noise below instantly stopped at his order. They all turned to watch them in fear, especially Bailey Yulei. Zhuo Fan looked grave as well, calculating a way out of this. Bailey Yulei, however, was in no rush to follow his order. Bailey Jingtian started and looked in confusion. Thunder Sword King, he is a criminal that the Patriarch wants. Why is it you're hesitating now when you're usually anxious to strike? Bailey Yulei glanced at him and scratched his nose. Bailey Jingtian's eye twitched, suspicion festering in his heart. Whoosh! Another person then showed up here, Bali Yuyu. Oh, you're, Ouyang Chongqing cried out, but saw Zhuo Fan silent. Brother Zhuo, isn't she with you? Why is she over there? Zhuo Fan only explained who she was to the leader because she stole the heaven-sealing sword. Ouyang Chongqing, a mere disciple, was in the dark. Bailey Yulei sighed, now finding a suitable excuse. Crown Prince, you're hurt now and would be best to retreat to tend your wounds. I'll take you to safety. Let's leave the grand merit to Yuyu, since Patriarch has been in a foul mood around her. I see. Thunder Sword King is looking after Frigid Rain Sword King, ha ha ha. Bailey Jingtian looked at them and his eyes shone. All right, let Frigid Rain Sword King take the credit. But I still want to watch as she rips Zhuo Fan's head from his corpse. Bali Yuyu and Bailey Yulei frowned. Bali Yuyu spoke, Crown Prince, you are a valuable talent that the Patriarch carefully raised. You need to look after yourself. With your heavy wounds, it's best we address them sooner. Just leave it to me. Brother Yulei, hurry and take the Crown Prince to safety. All right. Bailey Yulei nodded and acted. Bailey Jingtian flicked his hand in defiance. No, I'll never know peace unless I see Zhuo Fan die. I must watch how he is blown apart. Your Highness, leave it to me. Or do you not trust me? Bali Yuyu huffed, the Crown Prince's health is important to the Patriarch. Endangering you just so we could earn some credit will only earn his ire and wrath. Crown Prince, please tend to your wounds at once and don't make it harder on us, or we will have no choice but to insist on leaving. Bailey Jingtian winced, Frigid Rain Sword King, I appreciate your care. But I will have to insist. It has nothing to do with you. I will take full responsibility before the Patriarch. Crown Prince knows very well how the Patriarch is, going after the one who faulted. You believe just owning up will be enough? Bailey Yulei stared at him, I hope the Crown Prince won't make it any harder than it needs to be in taking care of yourself. We will have no choice but to insist if you delay any further. You are welcome to report us to the Patriarch, but we are doing this for your own good, which I'm sure he'll understand. Bali Jingtian eyes shook, staring at the Sword King and then at Zhuo Fan, gnashing his teeth. I shall refrain from speaking the worst, since we are all the foundation of the Bailey clan and do not want to break the harmony. But Sword Kings, you need to understand, is this worth it? Bailey Yulei shook and sighed, Crown Prince, after you. Fine, I hope you won't regret it later. Bailey Jingtian flicked his lone hand and spat before flying off. Bali Yulei gave Bali Yuyu a relieved look then followed him. Now, only one Sword King remained, showing a peculiar smile to Zhuo Fan. Chapter 1072, Pursuit. Chapter 1072, Pursuit. Proofreader, Papatonks. Floating down gently, like a breeze, Bali Yuyu kept her cold eyes on Zhuo Fan as she approached. The others were tense, taking a step back in worry. Bali Yuyu had been with Zhuo Fan for a while, but they had no idea what went on between them. They were utterly confused whether Frigid Rain Sword King's bloodthirst was friendly or antagonistic. They just couldn't figure it out, further raising their anxiety. On just what side is this woman standing? Sighing, Zhuo Fan put on a smile as he glanced at the approaching Bailey Yuyu. I never expected you of all people to take my side at this time. Are you blind or something? How am I on your side? Humph, narcissist. Pausing, Bali Yuyu glared again at Zhuo Fan, but her cheeks were now a bit rosy while her eyes spat fire. The Patriarch wants your puny life. I came to collect it. The rest trembled, looking tense as they watched with hearts in their throat. Zhuo Fan just shook his head. You'd have killed me by now if that was the case, and not forced the Crown Prince to leave. And who was that brother, such a loyal Sword King? He knows he's crossing Bailey Yutian yet still agreed to help you. Though your brother's a bit soft, why did he wish to help you save me yet still spare the Crown Prince's life? Won't he be more at ease by removing the star witness? Brother Yulei seems like a rough man usually, but he's in fact the most friendly among us Sword Kings. The Crown Prince is the pillar of the Bailey clan and brother could not just watch him to die. Glaring some more, Bailey Yuyu had finally reached him, you're nothing but evil. He risked so much to help you, yet you still wanted to use him to kill your enemies, his own kin. Have you no sympathy? Morong Shui bobbed her head, glaring with hatred at Zhuo Fan. Ouyang Chongqing cleared his throat, ahem, Sister Shui, please mind the situation. Brother Zhuo is on our side. His death means ours as well. Irresolute and compromising in morals, humph. Morong Shui turned her sharp glare on him. She was opposite of Zhuo Fan, against everything he believed, but she now had to put all these aside as she walked with the devil in these circumstances. This was the result of being helpless, of having the conscience to aspire to the greater good but sometimes becoming utterly powerless against doing anything about it. All she could do was to keep herself unmarred by this devil. Vigilance was what staved off evil. As the saying goes, good triumphs over evil, but just because someone says it doesn't mean they aren't a demon themselves. Shrugging, Bali Yuyu's critique went right over Zhua Fan, who chuckled, I don't have much sympathy to speak of, but I do know how to appreciate you two risking yourselves to help me. I will be sure to return the favor when you are in difficulty. Screw you. You are the one in difficulty. Bali Yuyu snapped her sharp eyes on him, refuting his words. Zhua Fan shook his head, his eyes shimmering, today you helped me and difficulties are still going to come in the future. Ha ha ha, anywho, I'll be sure to remember your help. Now come along. Zhua Fan turned and put on a grave face, there's still a distance to the teleportation array. Let's move right away. It should be 15 minutes, even less if we hurry. Wu Qingqiu added. Zhua Fan nodded and waved over Bali Yuyu, Yuyu, escort them out of here. You're still ordering me around like a servant? Didn't you decide to follow me just now? Zhua Fan cocked an eyebrow and smiled, just like on the caravan trail, listen to my orders. Or you can just take my life like Bailey Yutian ordered you to, your choice. Why you? Bali Yuyu was conflicted, giving an angry huff, but still walked ahead and roared back at them, don't dawdle and run. Once other sword kings notice there will be no escaping. Bali Yuyu shot forward, her word though did not carry any rancor. The others were stumped, but then they came to and hurried after her. When they glanced at Zhua Fan, they were filled with shock and admiration. Ouyang Chongqing patted Zhua Fan's shoulder, Brother Zhua, awesome. You're even poaching from the Invincible Swords team, his core members even. It used to be him and Bailey Jingwei who did the poaching so far, with Shangwan Feiyun and Dan Qingshan running over to their side. Now Brother Zhua had won over Frigid Rain Sword King, giving the Four Lands a reason to be proud. How did you do it? Good looks. Zhua Fan scratched his beyond-average face. He then went to Chu Qingqing's side, helping her with Shui Ruohua to rush to the teleportation array. Good looks? Ouyang Chongqing frowned, scratching his own perfect face, mulling, Brother Zhua used the honey trap and it worked? Doesn't that mean with my traits? Was there another woman sword king in Central Area? Meanwhile, Crown Prince Bailey Jingtian flew with a dark face with Bailey Yulei watching him like a hawk. 3 people suddenly showed up and Bailey Jingtian cried, Sword Kings, please wait. They paused, which only made Bailey Yulei frown. He saw Bailey Jingtian's look and could tell what he was planning. He couldn't knock the prince out now, not in front of them. Oh, it's the Crown Prince and Brother Yulei, how come you're together? The trio looked curiously. The Crown Prince should be with the juniors and no Sword King would just waste time with them. So why? The trio scanned them and said in shock, Crown Prince, your arm. Don't remind me. Sighing, Bailey Jingtian looked morose and in pain as he teared up, the patriarch wanted Zhua Fan's head, right? So my brothers and I went to get it. You found him? They gasped and then looked down. Curses, doesn't that mean they got all the credit for themselves? Crown Prince, then you must have won then and took his head. Did the other princes take it to the patriarch for a reward? The tears only grew larger in his eyes as Bailey Jingtian shook his head, what reward when the punk was savage? All my brothers have died at his hands. Even I lost my right arm. It's only thanks to Thunder Sword King that I still kept my life. What? The trio gave them a long look, stunned. The Crown Prince is the best among his peers, among all the lands. But not even with the other 9 princes could he beat that kid. Devil Mountain disciples are anything but normal. The shock was brief and their eyes shone again, this time on Bailey Yulei with a fake smile and cupped hands, then Brother Yulei must have taken the credit, congratulations. The patriarch will be sure to reward you well. Maybe he will even let you observe Sundering Sword for a few months and train. Brother Yulei's power will be the highest among us, ha ha ha. Bailey Yulei's face sank against these duplicitous kin of his. All he could do was nod. I fear you misunderstand. Bailey Jingtian recalled the hatred and fury from before and waved, Thunder Sword King is so noble that seeing me hurt, wanted to take me to safety and recover. I am touched by his dedication to even forego the great reward. Then the trio lit up. With a vile smirk, Bailey Yulei pointed behind, his sinister gaze peeking at Bailey Yulei. Frigid Rain Sword King happened to be there. Thunder Sword King let her take the credit. But the kid is quite skilled, while Frigid Rain Sword King had been around the kid for a while. She wouldn't be killing him so soon. She ought to be playing first. If you all. Right, we'll go there right now. The trio bobbed their heads, gave a rushed salute, and they were off where Crown Prince graciously pointed. Bailey Jingtian smirked at Bailey Yulei in insufferable smugness. Thunder Sword King, now you can look after me, ha ha ha. Bailey Yulei have a helpless nod and a sigh. Yu, my hands are tied. Those three won't let go of such a reward as easy. You're on your own. If you're willing to break it off with our clan over that kid, then no one can help you. Chapter 1073, Trick. Chapter 1073, Trick. Proofreader, Papatonks. Hurry it up, faster. Are you snails? Get a move on. Bali Yuyu was like a shrew with a whip, driving the herd while roaring at the top of her lungs. The guys were doing their best at running, while also having to endure the hag's incessant complaints. Ouyang Chongqing was the first to cave. He was the best disciple in Si Bright's sect. After all, how could he suffer such indignity? Alas, not even he could muster the courage to really tell her off, not since she was a sword king on equal level as his dad. Sister, we're wounded. Could you take it just a bit slower? Try to underdash. You understand. Bali Yuyu snapped harder, spraying while saying, your weakness got you those wounds. You couldn't even hold your own against 10 brats, just what the hell have you been doing all these years? A bunch of rejects, rabble, worms. Bali Yuyu had turned even more obnoxious, if that was even possible, not taking a break in her insults and criticisms. Ouyang Chongqing made himself small and shook, never to open his mouth again despite the shame he felt. You think yapping helped anyone? That it's that easy to fight Bailey Jingtian, a freak? Just how long did it take to get to the stage of a sword king anyway? Then look at our ages, could we compare? Humph, witch. Worms, trash, ugh. Bali Yuyu's curses were still as savage, telling it to everyone. Whether encouragement or whipping, all was good so long as they hurried the hell up. 15 minutes wasn't long nor short. But a sword king could catch up to them in no time at all. What would she do then, if one did find them? If she ended up fighting them, that would be betraying her clan, becoming an outcast forever. While ignoring the kids would be a death sentence, Zhuofan included, the only one she couldn't accept to see dead. This was the cause behind her anxiety. It only worked to drive her temper higher and take it out on them in the form of a nasty witch. Only this witch ended up mute the second she looked in Zhuofan's icy eyes while passing by. Only to resume her heckling once she turned to the rest. Everyone else's admiration for him only grew. Zhuofan not just poached invincible swordsmen, but even has a sword king at his beck and call. Awesome! Is it really just looks though? Ouyang Chongqing's hand flashed and took out a hand mirror, his sharp features reflecting in it. I'm certainly not behind that department, so why is sister? Paw! Then came Bali Yuyu's slap out of nowhere, shocking him silly. What is a grown man looking at his face for? You're worse than a woman. Get to stepping. Ouyang Chongqing's face sank, his shoulders sagged, and his head hung as he played the good doggy. The other snickered and Zhuofan shook his head. This guy sure is a clown. Whoosh! Bali Yuyu froze just then, her face darkening. Zhuofan frowned, looking back to shout at her, Yuyu, send these two off. Zhuofan hinted at Chu Qingcheng and Shui Ruohua. What about you? Bali Yuyu got his meaning, only making her worry more. Zhuo Fan shook his head. Qingqing is the one I can never let go. And I trust no one else more with Qingqing than senior sister Shui. You must take them and I'll be at ease. I'll then go to North Sea where they'll have a hard time finding me. Chu Qingqing's dull gaze entered Bali Yuyu's sight with a complicated feeling. She turned to Zhuo Fan in hesitation. Yuyu, you turned your back on Bailey Yutian to save me. I am truly touched. I am sorry for telling you that I didn't need you. Now I do need you, to take my wife to safety. Zhuo Fan stared into her eyes as he spoke. You know that staying won't help blocking the three of them anyway. Moreover, do you really want to wear the stigma of a traitor? You came to help me and don't want to see you suffer for it. It's best if you don't meet with them. Take the girls, I have my own means of surviving. Don't you trust me after all we've been through? Bali Yuyu gnashed her teeth, then grabbed Chu Qingqing and Shui Ruohua. She shot straight for the teleportation array. Her voice echoed from behind, make sure you don't die, rascal. Hey, why is sister leaving? Ouyang Chongqing blinked, asking Zhuo Fan what was going on. Zhuo Fan smiled, you can't sense it since you're wounded. We felt three strong presences rushing over. They must be three sword kings. She helped me due to our friendship, but in the dark. She can't be found out by the others, so I had her take the girls to safety. Brother Zhuo, what about us? Ouyang Chongqing started, his eyes big as saucers. Zhuo Fan mocked as he pointed at himself with smug confidence, don't you have me? You? You can fight a sword king. Myself? No, but I came more than prepared on this trip up north. I even have ways to deal with that invincible sword. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed, turning back and looking with a fierce face, not to mention, their target is me. There's no escape now. Whoosh! Three figures appeared in the sky, the power of the Sword Kings enveloping them all and making them shiver. Only Zhuo Fan was still calm, with a mocking grin on his face. I heard Bailey's 5 Sword Kings are each amazing. I've met Thunder Sword King and Frigid Rain Sword King, then you must be Tempest Sword King, Cloud Sword King and Infernal Sword King. Ha ha ha, Sir Zhuo, it's been a while. We were all getting along so well, but now it seems that you became our target. How things change, ha ha ha. They cupped their hands to Zhuo Fan and laughed, though their eyes glittered, seeing him only as a glittering jewel. Sir Zhuo, we heard that Frigid Rain Sword King might be here and we also just sensed her trace. How come she isn't? Zhuo Fan showed his pearly whites, sporting an evil face. Who, that dumb broad? Ha ha ha, she was as much of a conceited moron as you are, trying to take my head. Humph, she fled after I got her good. I'm only standing here and not going after her to end her because I sensed you were coming. What? The trio cried in shock, you mean you wounded Frigid Rain Sword King? No way. You're just a soul harmony. Zhuo Fan mocked them, and it was Bali Yuyu who told you that, I reckon. Ha ha ha, and you believed her? What's that supposed to mean? The trio shook and frowned. With a sly smirk on his face, Zhuo Fan squinted, Bailey Yutian pestered Bali Yuyu into helping me, but it was to read me, isn't it? You think I couldn't tell such an obvious trick? Humph, so why then would I show up all my cards to her? I bet you don't even know that your brats are almost all dead, with only the last one saved in time by Frigid Rain Sword King and Thunder Sword King. Not much of a save though, since I didn't care about him anyway and didn't hunt him down. For not even 2 Sword Kings could stop me from killing my prey. Humph, I am a Devil Mountain disciple, and don't you forget it. The aura of a king oozed out of Zhuo Fan and, despite being below the Genesis stage, everyone felt a shiver. Even the Sword Kings couldn't stave off the chill. Are Devil Mountain disciples that incredible? Does Frigid Rain Sword King's report only contain things he wanted to tell? Then they had to be extra cautious around him, especially since he gave a heavy wound to a Sword King. Against the great credit the trio was about to earn with ease, they started to hesitate. Zhuo Fan was, of course, only bluffing and made himself bigger than he was, something the trio were totally oblivious of, scared by his blustering. Chapter 1074, The Three Wounded. Chapter 1074, The Three Wounded. Proofreader, Papatonks. Are these Sword Kings muscleheads to believe everything I say? Looking at the shaking Sword Kings above, Zhuo Fan smirked. Brother Zhuo, to think you're so strong that you even defeated a Sword King. Ouyang Chongqing looked at him with reverence. Bailey Jingtian hardly needed you to break a sweat. With Brother Zhuo by our side, we're at ease. But Brother Zhuo, how do you train to become beyond a Sword King so soon when you're our peer? We should have the same resources, so how are you so obscenely strong? Zhuo Fan's brow twitched as he glanced at the pompous fool. Brother Ouyang, what is it, in your opinion, the most important in the cultivation world? I know that, Dad told me. It's loyalty. No, it's tricking. Zhuo Fan roared, you know exactly what went on with Frigid Rain Sword King, and now you even fell for my blustering? Or have you been cultivating the same as these Sword Kings, to become a musclehead? Murong Shui giggled, earning their odd looks, but turned serious the next second. The rest chuckled as well. Ouyang Chongqing figured it out at last. Oh, Brother Zhuo tricked them. And they believed you. It depends on how solid the lie is. Their biggest doubt is whether Frigid Rain Sword King has run off. As long the truth isn't revealed, we can maintain this stalemate. Zhuo Fan's eyes shone. And then? Ouyang Chongqing asked, won't we end up dead when they finally find out? Sure, because this is just a temporary plan to stall. Once help arrives, all will be settled. Help? Who? You'll know in time. But if she doesn't hurry, I'll be found out. While not finished, but, Zhuo Fan frowned. Ouyang Chongqing was clueless. He had no idea that Zhuo Fan's goal was to get to the North Sea for the CAO and nothing else. The flames of war between the Central Area and the Four Lands could reach the heavens for all he cared. Sure, he could act as the third party to break the stalemate on the two's conflict, but that would only cut at his profits. For instance, he had it in him to finish the invincible sword then and there, but why would he? That would mean the collapse of the Central Area and the Four Lands wouldn't be worn out any longer. Their armies would race to the Central Area to get their share of the spoils. This would end in the lands winning big and him getting nothing. Only when the two sides choke each other to the last man would he have the most to gain. While the Central Area and the Four Lands wanted to lord over the other, Zhuo Fan wanted them in balance. The same way he raised the Luo clan while facing tough but complex factions. It wouldn't help to break the balance until he milked it for all it was worth. Then after, rise to take it all. And that was no easy feat either. Though his ambitions weren't something that any of the factions were privy to. As they spilled each other's blood, they were blissfully unaware of a common enemy cheering them on without lifting a finger to help, let alone harming a Sword King. The Four-Land Alliance would have died in regret if it knew. They invited the wolf and even appointed him Grand Marshal. Sweating a little, the three Sword Kings above had fallen for Zhuo Fan's ruse, lost as to what to do. A thin man turned to a middle-aged man, Brother Yuyun, for him to inflict heavy harm on Yuyu. He must be as strong as around 3 Sword Kings, or Yuyu wouldn't have gotten the chance to escape otherwise. That means even if we work together, we might still not take him down. Yeah, on account of his words being true. Bailey Yuyun muttered. The pudgy man with sideburns rushed to add, but his words matched the Crown Prince's story. This proves Yuyu's report was wrong. How can a soul harmony cultivator harm the Crown Prince like that? And he did it all without any traps. Yuyu must have been in the dark of his strength as well to be forced to flee in defeat. Why else would the Crown Prince say Yuyu is here only to not catch a glimpse of her? What other reason is there for not taking such credit besides being beaten back? The trio looked at each other, with Bailey Yuyun saying, this is even worse. Devil Mountain isn't weak, but beyond strong, someone we can never offend. Yet we just did. We need to silence him. The lanky man slanted his head and spoke with sharp eyes, none can be left alive, not even the kids. Alas, the guy's power is still unclear. Will we be able to? Bailey Yuyan squinted, showing a crafty look. The kid may be tough to crack, but the others are dead weight. Seeing how he's with them, there must be someone among them he cares enough to affect his calm. I'll keep him busy, testing him and drawing to the side while you kill the rest. The instant he's distracted, we'll strike him hard together. This will tell us who among them he cares the most. The faster we find his weakness, the easier it'll be to finish him. Well? Brilliant, Brother Yun. The two gave him a thumbs up. The trio then turned to their victims, no longer hesitating and ready for action. Zhuo Fan's heart sank. They sure are sword kings to come up with a plan so soon. This is the end of the ruse then. Having come up with a plan, there's no need for hesitation. Whoosh! The trio shot like hawks upon the kids. Bailey Yuyan went for Zhuo Fan while the other two split up and went around to target the wounded group. Even if by some miracle Zhuo Fan was a sword king, he'd still be stuck. He had no way of protecting himself and everyone else. The crux was, he wasn't and he couldn't even defend against a sword king. Under the bubbling pressure slamming into them, the others shivered and paled. Zhuo Fan frowned, touching the flickering ring with a sigh. With no time left, I have no choice but to step in. Hum. Ripples spread from his ring as immense power surges flashed. Zhuo Fan raised his hand, his eyes cold. Since they came to die. Whoosh. But then the sudden sword energies shot and forced the sword kings to slant out of the way. The sword energies cut a hole in their clothes, close to harming them. Who did that? The trio glared and turned back. A familiar voice echoed in everyone's ears, ha ha ha, sword kings are great men having been in this world for thousands of years, yet they like picking on little kids? Dad! Elder brother! Ouyang Chongqing and Murong Shui shouted in joy. The saviors were none other than three people, all wielding divine swords, Murong Lai, Ouyang Lingtian and Shengguan Feixiong. Though they were looking a bit pale there, even with their imposing presence. One could also not mistake the blood at their mouths, a sign of a heavy wound. Regardless, they chose to force themselves through the pain and face the three sword kings without remorse. Zhuo Fan raised his hand only to put it down with a sigh. Now that there's someone here to stop them, there's no need to waste energy, he. Brother Zhuo, you're so amazing to know help will come. With Dad in them, the sword kings can't do anything to us, ha ha ha. Ouyang Chongqing was ecstatic. Oh, what do we do now? Look for a safe place to watch them fight or cheer them on. Brother Zhuo, with your cunning mind, what do you think it's best? Zhuo Fan glanced at him. The help I mention isn't them, though they're not a bad choice since they're here. So we should just run. Zhuo Fan shouted the last word and signaled the others to scramble after him for the teleportation array, leaving them in a daze. Reacting after a long time, they asked, Brother Zhuo, why would we run? We were dangerously close to having my trick found out. Now that someone actually lent a helping hand, only a fool would just stay to watch and die. Zhuo Fan urged the rest to run like hell while he barked at the pompous Ouyang Chongqing. Ouyang Chongqing was bemused. Aren't they here already? Why? Bang! 3 booms drowned his voice as 3 figures slammed the ground in front of them, splattering the earth with their blood. They were none other than the 3 divine sword wielders, their helpers. The swords in their hands hummed, as if mournful at the humiliation. Ouyang Chongqing gaped at seeing his father down. How could his father with the divine sword even fall in one blow? Chapter 1075, You're Wrong. Chapter 1075, You're Wrong. Proofreader, Papatonks. The certain shade of red blood could give a certain luster when splattered. It contrasted with Ouyang Lingtian and the other two's pale faces, their feeble appearances and hopeless looks. Ouyang Chongqing and Murong Shui were gasping in disbelief. They had never seen their kin damaged to such an extent. How can this be? There were only 3 sword kings, almost on par with them. Not to mention they had the divine sword's help, all 3 of them. So why then did they fail instead of win? What happened? Zhuo Fan was the only one sharp enough to figure it out, sighing, I hoped they'd last some more, but those heavy wounds didn't help. Wounds? Morong Shui snapped her eyes at him, brother and them were hurt before. Zhuo Fan gave a flat nod, their first attacks to stop the Sword Kings might have looked great, but were shallow. They must have used their last drop to scare them. Pretty much like I've done it. Though. What? All asked at once. Zhuo Fan smirked, they don't have my acting skills. They tried to look calm, but the sweaty brows gave away the fact that they were running out of steam. Even the strongest of their land and wielding a divine sword, their energy was bone dry. I hoped they'd stall for a while longer, but they couldn't even last a hit. They must have suffered so badly before that they can't even fight to death now. The others shook at the explanation. The three mighty experts, with divine swords too, were their hope at survival, only to be smashed into the ground before them. They were damaged to begin with, unable to even help themselves. Thus it only worked to scare the enemy off and failed miserably when their bluff failed. What were they going to do then against the Sword Kings? Die? They all paled, looking at each other with dead eyes. Ouyang Chongqing and Morong Shui rushed to their kin to help them up. Shangguan Feixiong was the only one alone, with no one lending a hand. Is no one going to help this old man? Did I not just come to save you kids? Shangguan Feixiong complained, looking at his other peers being helped, and his mood soured. Pa! A large hand just then held him by the shoulder. Turning, he saw a familiar smile. Ha ha ha, Shangguan clan head, I told you, soaring swords unsealing was never going to be good for you. Wielding it, you had to fight that invincible monster, and unable to defeat him, this is how you end up. While not using soaring sword, you'd be out as a frontline commander. Now do you know the meaning of a blessing in disguise? Shangguan Feixiong shuddered and gave Zhuo Fan a bitter smile. Sir Zhuo's foresight is flawless. I knew that with my strength that I wouldn't be a match to that old freak even with the soaring sword. But this is what a man does. I would gladly lay down my life if it means the four lands will thrive. TCH, if the old geezer was that easy to snuff out, you'd never be so afraid of him. Zhuo Fan taunted. Shangguan Feixiong nodded and sighed, I was only wishing for it. It would have been my life's glory if it worked. Shangguan Feixiong turned a deep gaze on Zhuo Fan. Sir Zhuo, from central area to northern lands, every time I struck misfortune, it's always you that lends a hand. I am touched by your friendship. As long as the Shangguan clan survives this war, my clan will never deny any of your requests in time of need, as gratitude for fighting shoulder to shoulder. Better save that for when the Shangguan clan actually sees tomorrow. Though you better be sure that I remember this favor. Don't regret it later, he he he. I won't, even if you want my daughter's hand, I'll accept without remorse. Now hold it there. I'm a married man, I don't need you to sell her to me. And? A true man has a couple or four by his side. Yenner might be against it, but will be sure to accept it if it's you. Now I'm badly hurt and only you came to my aid, already looking like a son-in-law. I told you to hold it, are you deaf? Wu Qingqiu, you take the old man. Seeing Shangguan Feixiong still trying to stick to him through his daughter, Zhuo Fan tried to stop him only to finally push him on Wu Qingqiu. Wu Qingqiu was a man of virtue and accepted it gladly. Morong Shui and Ouyang Chongqing glanced at each other, looking at their own kin in shock. They're hurt because they fought the invincible sword? Ouyang Lingtian coughed and sighed with a lowered head, still not accepting the outcome himself. Is the invincible sword strong enough to hurt all three of you divine sword wielders? Morong Shui gasped in disbelief. The plan was to use the three divine swords against Bailey Yutian in the first place, to stall him while their reinforcements came, and then drown him in numbers. It clearly didn't work. Bailey Yutian's mere slash had them crushed, all three of them. Unable to stall Bailey Yutian, their plan went up in smoke. If not for Zhuo Fan's plan to fight to the death, their own plan would have fallen through on the spot by now. While now they had a sliver of hope in victory. They believed that with Shuafan's plan, with 2 lands worth of soldiers, they could turn it around. The invincible sword hurt us badly. We used the divine swords to shield ourselves but still only barely escaped with our lives. Ouyang Lingtian's brow shook and sighed. Bailey Yutian is beyond human in strength. Not even together could we touch him. Murong Lai closed his eyes, morose, shaking his head in despair. Ha ha ha, now you know the Patriarch's power, but it's too late. Everyone shuddered, looking up at one of the 3 sword kings surrounding them, Bailey Yuyan. Your appearance made us realize that you're ready to drop, and that you all have no strength to go on. We've been around Patriarch for so long, and yet we've never seen anyone surviving his strike. You only managed to because of those divine swords, otherwise you'd be corpses by now. And damaged as you are now, you still want to fight us? Humph, fools. Ouyang Lingtian gasped and his face twisted in fury. He flicked his hand and the sword in it, pointing at the trio. Chongqing, escort Sir Zhua and the others out of here. Get to the teleportation array and you'll all be safe. Murong Lai stood up by himself next to Ouyang Lingtian, looking pale but still willing to fight. Shengguan Feixiong coughed as he forced himself to stand. I may be feeble, but I have no regret giving my decrepit body if it means protecting the kids, the future of the 4 lands, ha ha ha. Father, Ouyang Chongqing cried out. Ouyang Lingtian cut him off, his voice stern. Chongqing, I know you're worried about me, but don't worry. Your safety will be the one thing to put me at ease. Now go. Father. Stop. You should get there with your speed in a minute. I can still hold them back for at least this much. Father. Go. Ouyang Lingtian held his divine sword, roaring and ready to die. Ouyang Chongqing scratched his head, hanging his head. Father, you're wrong there. That's not what I meant. We're hurt just like you and can't fly fast, needing 15 minutes to reach the teleportation array. Would you be able to hold a little longer? Ugh! The 3 of them shuddered and froze. Damn prodigal son. Chapter 1076, The Tigress is here. Chapter 1076, The Tigress is here. Proofreader, Papatonks. Face twitching hard, Ouyang Lingtian jerked his head to the smiling Ouyang Chongqing. What was that? Ha ha ha, father, easy now. You can't blame us since they were stronger than us and all ended up hurt. Brother Zhua gave us a pill just recently and only then could we move again. That's the only reason you see us standing before you and not on the ground. Scratching his head, Ouyang Chongqing explained bashfully. Ouyang Lingtian stared long at him, then turned to the 3 sword kings. Was it them who hurt you? Humph, a great sword king could erase you in one strike. What would be the point of torturing kids? Wrong, Ouyang Lingtian, we have our dignity and yet to wallow in some sick hobbies. We'd never do that to some kids. Bailey Yuyan mocked them, pointing at them. If you really want to know, just ask them. Ouyang Lingtian turned an inquisitive look at his son. Ouyang Chongqing mumbled a bit and looked shyly. Father, we've met with the Bailey princes and ended up. Ended up how? All 3 of the divine sword wielders asked at the same time. The kids were all looking down and ashamed, crushed. You wrecked the 10 princes by yourselves? They cried out at once. The 4 lands heroes have truly capable successors. Ouyang Chongqing sighed as their elders jumped the gun. Dad, what are you saying? It's them who wrecked us. The trio gasped, their hearts sinking into despair. The princes were all so tough, especially Bailey Jingtian. Brother Yilin and I had to work together, yet we still couldn't make him take us seriously. He wiped the floor with us easily. The others were also felled by the 9 princes too, in one strike while we couldn't even touch them. Dad, just how did those Bailey freaks train? It's like they were leagues above us from the 4 lands. Ouyang Chongqing asked his seniors, but they froze up like statues, with Ouyang Lingtian droning on. The royalty of the Sword Star Empire is unstoppable. Bailey Yutian crushed us in one strike, even our strongest juniors were unable to match the princes. Father and son ended up as punching bags, the four lands strongest wiped, regardless of age. We may go above and beyond with our sacrifices to win this war, but then what about our children? The invincible sword might die, but a new invincible sword will appear in the central area. Ouyang Lingtian sank in despair, unable to see a way out of this horrible nightmare. The other two sighed. Sword Star Empire is strong in every generation, destroying four lands every last hope. What then is the point of even fighting? Even if we somehow get to stop this generation's invincible sword, what will our kids do when the next one appears? The three sighed again. Ha ha ha, Ouyang Lingtian, Murong Lai, ignorant fools, you've got yourself cooped up in seclusion to fight Patriarch to the point you turned blind to the ever-changing world outside. Bailey Yuyun laughed with immense pride, his patronizing cutting deep. Our empire has potential and strength beyond what your lands can offer. Not only Patriarch and the 5 Sword Kings can crush you, but even our juniors can wipe the floor with your top disciples, for we are the strongest clan in the world. We are above you in every single way. Your obsession to resist will only delay your end and prolong your pain. Ouyang Lingtian, how your son ended is proof of that. You can fight our empire for a decade, century, thousands of years, yet still have not the slightest chance at winning. The trio shook, their faces sinking harder and the divine swords slipping out of their grip. The confidence of these true experts was destroyed. The Sword Kings jeered harder. Bullshit. Ouyang Chongqing had never seen his father so down, snapping in anger. He stomped over to Zhuo Fan, baffling him, and shouting at the Sword Kings above, "What strongest clan? That's nothing but utter horse crap." I had yet to finish talking. We have indeed lost at the hand of your princes, but all your 10 princes were just as easily destroyed by Brother Zhuo here as well. The Sword Kings flinched, turning to Zhuo Fan and looking grave. Ouyang Lingtian watched curiously now. Ouyang Chongqing held his head high, like he did it. Brother Zhuo, Big Brother Zhuo, is a genius to shake the gods and shock the world. What could your princes possibly do? Big Brother Zhuo wiped out 9 of them in a flash, you got that? They didn't even have time to fight back. Even Bailey Jingtian, the last one, lost his arm and fled like a coward, and only with the help of 2 Sword Kings. Humph. Ouyang Chongqing went 1, we ended up defeated by your 10 princes, yet that's enough to declare the central area above us? Then, since Big Brother Zhuo destroyed your princes in a flash, leaving 1 crippled, still make you superior? Calling yourself the best clan in the world, then who do you take Zhuo Fan for? Humph, well let me tell you, get off your high horse for one day the Zhuo clan will take over. Big Brother Zhuo is the 2nd invincible sword, no, that guy's nothing. Big Brother Zhuo will be even stronger. Ouyang Chongqing flared his nostrils at the Sword Kings, barking on and on like the greatest man there ever was, cocky and obnoxious. He spoke of everything like it was some grand achievement. Zhuo Fan chuckled, Brother Ouyang, since you're so keen on placing hatred on someone, take it yourself and not drag me into this. I have no intention to compete with Bailey clan. Brother Zhuo, I would have taken it all if I could fight, just look what that got me. Ouyang Chongqing turned his sparkling eyes to him, you saw it yourself, how cocky those wretched fools are. Their words almost crushed Dad on the inside. I could not just watch and had to support my father and the other land's heroes, to show them the light. And I only spoke the truth. With Brother Zhuo's power, it's only a matter of time before you replace the arrogant Bailey clan in lording over the world. I have faith in you. I call you Big Brother now, coming into your clan, so now you have to take a stand. Do this and I shall follow your every word to the letter, what do you say? Zhuo Fan eyed him long and hard. The war took place in northern lands, where both sides focused their forces. While his faction would use the other 4 empty lands to develop, now that he had the chance. But once everything's settled, northern lands would be hard to influence. So with Ouyang Chongqing as the big boss around these parts would be a nice back door to spread his grip. Zhuo Fan gave a reluctant nod, might as well set myself a foothold here. Ouyang Chongqing grinned, finally able to be as cocky as he wanted on another's reputation. All of this wasn't on impulse either, birthed from the incredible worship he had in Zhuo Fan. Ever since he witnessed Zhuo Fan crushing the 10 princes like nothing, he knew then and there why Yilin held Zhuo Fan in such high regard. Be it in wisdom or boldness, Zhuo Fan had it all to fight even those old fogies. His action was more like an investment. He accepted Zhuo Fan as one to shake the world with his actions, and Ouyang Chongqing definitely wanted to be right there to relish in it. He might be pompous, but his goals were lofty since young, to be the best of the best. Though by the looks of it, with so many freaks around, it proved difficult. So he chose to stick to the freakiest around, to lord over the rest of the masses. Now that's a great bet. Ouyang Lingtian turned to Zhuo Fan, gasping but also feeling hope stirring in his crushed heart. The Bailey clan was not almighty. Someone would come to dethrone them. And that someone is Zhuo Fan. The Sword Kings above did not deny Ouyang Chongqing's ravings, slowly nodding their heads. Yes, well said, boy. If the central area is a cut above the other lands, then Devil Mountain Disciples' power is beyond the profane world, shaking even us. That's why we won't let him grow. Kill him. Bailey Yuyun shouted and the trio shot for Zhuo Fan. Ouyang Lingtian and the others too used their last strength to roar and stop them. Sir Zhuo, run. We'll stop them. Humph, damaged as you are. The Sword Kings mocked. A flash of thunder followed by rumbling came out of nowhere. Who dares touch father shall die. Zhuo Fan smirked. You're late, Chower. Chapter 1077, Here's your strongest plan. Chapter 1077, Here's your strongest plan. Proofreader, Papatonks. Boom! Purple lightning flashed at the horizon, unleashing 3 attacks on the Sword Kings before they reached Zhuo Fan. They had to flick their hands to stop the lightning strikes from hitting them, and they frowned as the attack forced them back. Who is it that can unleash the same type of lightning as the Sundering Sword? Whoosh! Chower flashed in front of Zhuo Fan, giggling. Father, I'm just in time. No, you're late. Zhuo Fan grinned and shrugged teasingly. Any later and you'd have to scrape your poor old man from the ground. Chower gave a sly grin. No, I wouldn't. Dad has so many aces those 3 wouldn't be able to touch you. Who can say? Maybe I'm so stingy I'll never use any. We still need to reach North Sea as well and should be use in case of certain doom only. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan shook his head, at which Chower smiled and wrinkled her cute nose. Dad, that's petty. While they were having a moment there between father and daughter, the rest were just shell-shocked. Ouyang Chongqing jerked awake. Hey, big brother Zhuo, why your miss? What? That miss of yours that interfered. Ouyang Chongqing gesticulated as he found it hard to speak the right words, stammering, Jay, just how old is she? The rest gasped at the young miss in disbelief. She looked around 6 but she just struck thrice with the power of around peak soul harmony stage. A junior with that power would be a mighty talent indeed. But then what would that make her, still a twerp yet wielding so much power? Just what is wrong with this world? Ouyang Lingtian's team was just as stunned as the rest of them. Thinking about it, they had seen Zhuo Fan with his daughter, but was written off as extra in their minds, of no import. Only now they saw her as a real threat. Were all those around Zhuo Fan freaks of nature? Shangguan Feixiong had it the worst. He could still remember the young boy Zhuo Fan had with him back in the central area, the same boy who punched Shangguan Feiyun so hard he spurted blood. Now he showed up with a girl. Is the Zhuo clan a den of monsters? Everyone gave Zhuo Fan astonishing looks. Zhuo Fan gave a light wave, though finding no need to answer Ouyang Chongqing. Chower, now I can rest easy with you here. I'll leave the Sword Kings to you. Make sure they don't follow and do be careful. Their nature is in opposition with yours, so don't meet their sundering sword art. Don't worry, Dad, I know, he. Chower flicked her twin ponytails as she turned around to stare at her targets with insufferable smugness. Dad says you 3 can't pass me, unless you want to die. I feel heaven's generosity for life, so I'll make it easy for you. If you don't budge, then you get to live longer. Dong! The minds of all boomed like drums at the young missies blustering, unable to wrap their heads around how a wee girl could be so arrogant. Then they realized. Right, like father like daughter, insufferably arrogant both of them. While the next reaction was, is the girl crazy? She may be in the soul harmony stage at her incredibly young age, practically a miracle, but no matter how outrageous, she's no match for Sword Kings. It'd be a loss upon this world for such a gem to be nipped in the cradle. Looking at the cute girl standing tallish, with that mighty look on her face, had Ouyang Ling Tian and the rest feel it was such a pity, giving blaming looks to Zhuofan. We can understand the child being rash, obnoxious and wild, since it's her nature, but you, as her father, are supposed to act your age and not send your own daughter to her death. Why the hell would you? Zhuofan flicked his hand, walking away. In 15 minutes you'll all be safe through the teleportation array as I escort you. I also want to see for myself that Qingqing has left. Big brother Zhua, you're going to leave and leave my niece here all by herself. Ouyang Chongqing was quite forward, first calling him big brother and now treating Chao as his niece, all stuck to him like glue. Zhuofan eyed him then chuckled. The kid sure has no sense of shame, just like me. In the poor days of the Luo clan, he was anxious to get some backing for it, so he used the same tactic on Long Jiu from Veiled Dragon Pavilion. While he might not have found anyone from the mortal domain worth his attention, back then he was too broke and too powerless not to become sworn brothers with his best options to speed up his development plan. It was his lack of propriety that got the same clan turned into the enormous faction that was today. Looking at Ouyang Chongqing, Zhuofan was looking at himself and smiled. Brother Ouyang, weren't you calling my clan the strongest? Then just watch, the Zhua clans might. I find it beneath me addressing some Sword Kings, leaving it to the kids, ha ha ha. Everyone gasped, their eyes big. Dude, that's quite a mouth you have. You can show off, yes, but that's going overboard. Sending a 6-year-old girl to deal with Sword Kings? Is your clan made up of gods now? Besides Zhuofan, taking his sweet time walking off, the others were rooted to their spots, all staring at the cute Chao with skepticism. They were just too damn curious how the child could fight 3 Sword Kings in the soul harmony stage. They wanted to test her limits and Zhuofan's wild boasting. Ouyang Ling Tian and the other 2 were gripping their divine swords, ready to strike as well. If Chao couldn't handle it, they would protect her. It was too much of a shame to bear, having a 6-year-old dying to protect these old coots. Their pride was on the line here. The Sword Kings were just as tense, though never considering Chao from the start. Having seen her to be in the soul harmony stage from the 3 lightning attacks, they no longer cared. They only had eyes for Zhuofan. Brother Yun, the plan was to take the kid's head to get some credit, but then these 3 geezer came to give us their swords. Taking them to Patriarch as well will give us an even bigger commendation. Maybe Patriarch will even let us have them once he finished learning their arts. Then we'll become the only ones among the 9 Sword Kings to wield divine swords. None will be our equals, he he he. One Sword King spoke to Bailey Yuyun, who nodded and shouted, what are we waiting for? Kill them and take the swords. The Sword Kings laughed and went for Ouyang Ling Tian and Zhuofan, full of excitement at the prospects of a glorious future. Chao never even registered as their target. Ouyang Ling Tian turned grave, flicking his sword and pointing it at the incoming Sword Kings, come on. You'll have to pry our sword from our cold, dead hands. Isn't that obvious? We came to do just that, ha ha ha, Bailey Yuyun cackled, focusing his sword energy, drifting and floating. He waved and lightning cracked, striking fear in all as the sword energy split into 3 and shot for them. The 3's brows shook, sweat building on their brows. They used their divine swords to block, gnashing their teeth and getting ready for impact. A bang resounded from the impact, but not with their swords. It was a streak of golden energy that shot for the 3 sword energies. Bailey Yuyun gasped, what is that? Boom! He had no time to make sense of it as the raging golden flames surged and punched a huge hole in the sky. The golden light and the three sword energies clashed in a terrible explosion, dyeing the skies golden with the searing flames. The shockwave spread everywhere for thousands of miles, burning anything to a crisp. Ouyang Ling Tian and the other two had their divine swords to shield them, but the power was so great they coughed blood still. The blood never got to touch the ground, burned in the air before it reached it. Only Qiao smiled, her twin tails swaying with the heat waves, unaffected. Zhuo Fan never looked back, still, walking away with a smirk. Here's your strongest clan, ha ha ha. Chapter 1078, Unstoppable Ambush. Chapter 1078, Unstoppable Ambush. Proofreader, Papatonks. Plop. The scorching golden flames filled the skies. 3 men were suddenly flung to the side, broken and wrecked, with even their black hair singed as they all coughed up a lot of blood. Finally stabilizing their condition, the Sword Kings looked pale as death. Their early confidence and mocking smirks were wiped off their faces, looking panicky and in shock at the golden conflagration and at the sweet innocent girl behind it. Only this 6-year-old girl's smile looked like the devil's to them. No matter how impressed they were of her before, they still couldn't believe she would end up so outrageously powerful. One strike had them falling back in wounds. This is impossible. Eyes shook, hearts quaked. The golden inferno was reflected on their terrified faces, turning their legs into jelly and robbing them of all courage. They were pushed back, all 3 of them, and given injuries. A couple more of that and they'd be breathing their last, even Sword Kings as they were. That thing is a killing machine. Blast that Bali Yu for not doing her job right. Her report is leagues behind reality. If the Missy is so tough, what about the big guy? The trio's heart sank, not wanting to go down that road. Ha ha ha, get a load of my power. Qiao wiggled her brows in pride and laughed as golden flames burned in front. Listen up and listen good. That was just a warning. Take one more step and you'll have me to answer to. The trio's hearts jumped in their chests, taking a step back in fright. The imperial family from the central area would have gone wide-eyed from shock. 3 great and strong Sword Kings ended up terrified and cowering before some kid? The reality was, the girl was just that damn dangerous that not even a Sword King could mess with her. Ouyang Changqing's jaw hit the floor, becoming numb from shock. He had to see it to believe it. The kid is so deadly that she can destroy a Sword King with every strike. Standing there frozen in shock, Ouyang Changqing took a long time to come back to reality. He whipped his head at Zhuo Fan and stammered, "Be big brother Zhuo, are all in your clan like that? What the hell got you so monstrous?" "Not monstrous, but the strongest clan, no?" Zhuo Fan smirked, "Brother Ouyang, you said my clan is the strongest, and while I dislike showing off, sometimes you have to take a stand. Won't everyone treat your words like bragging otherwise?" "Ha ha ha, just leave this to Qiao. You should hurry instead and look after your father to leave this place. It's not safe at all here." With a wide smile, Zhuo Fan kept on walking, showing off his straight back. Ouyang Changqing was in awe as he muttered, "Damn, I made the right bet after all. The Zhuo clan is outrageous and now I'm set to get in, ha ha ha. My foresight is the best, ugh, forget my old man." Only now he recalled how the previous mighty blast sent the 3 seniors flying. The shock of Qiao's super ridiculous power had him blanked out till now, waking up at last to the fact that his father needed help. The 3 old men were slumped on the searing ground blinking at the golden inferno and at Qiao, even forgetting about their wounds. They were in the same state as the 3 Sword Kings. Besides shock, they were more in awe. There's actually something so ridiculously insane in this world as a 6-year-old girl capable of. Dad, this is no time to gawk, not with your wounds. Big brother Zhuo wants us to leave, so let's go. Ouyang Changqing rushed over and pulled on Ouyang Lingtian's hand over his shoulder. The others heard his yell and finally reacted, going to the other 2 to help them out. Yet the 3 old guys were still out of it, unable to process what had just transpired, eyes staring blankly at Shower. Someone's always above you. For the first time ever, they felt this saying on their own skin. There was no such thing as the strongest in this world, and there might even be more out there better than you. Men need to know respect and not be arrogant. The trio were taken away as they sighed with lowered heads. They were the strongest in their lands, at the top of the world, with only the invincible sword standing above them. They were all civilized men, but being constantly affected by their status made them develop unhealthy pride in themselves while disregarding all others. They only saw the invincible sword as their real opponent. Chow now showed them, slapped them hard awake. There were countless young heroes out there, beyond even what these old relics could achieve. Wu Qingqiu's team gave Chow one last look before realizing that Zhuofan's daughter did have the power to block the Sword Kings. Even as baffled and stunned as they were, they could not misplace the safety they felt. Without hesitating any longer, they dragged the three seniors after Zhuofan. Yilin stepped livelier, catching up to him, whispering, "Elder brother, did Chow use a dragon breath pill?" "Yeah." "How many do you have?" "If she uses them all, then nothing will stop them." "Relax, Dragon Ancestor gave her 10. I bet 3 are enough to rip even those Sword Kings to pieces." Zhuofan smirked in confidence. Yilin flinched and gasped, "So many." "Master is playing favorites. He only gave me a couple last time and now he just gives away 10. On top of that, they're even stronger. And he even said the dragon breath pill drains him a lot." "Liar. This shows he cares more about the girl than me." "I don't think so, since I provoked him into giving them, and our mission this time is too dangerous. Dragon Ancestor just gave us a little something to be prepared for whatever comes our way." "Dangerous? Elder brother, weren't you in a rush to seal the world wind tunnels? Why have you come to the northern lands? Can I help?" "Most likely not." Zhuofan shook his head, turning serious. "To be honest, I came to the North Sea to find heaven sealing Cao. But then I heard he has a foul temper, treating humans like they're his bitter enemies, so I came prepared." "You can't get involved. The more we are before the sacred beast, the worse it would probably be. There's no point in wasting your life. I'll have to play it by ear and see if I can get him to cooperate." Recalling his master's strength, Yilin nodded in understanding, then sighed and gave up. And so, the team left their backs in Chow's care as they moved with speed for the teleportation array. The Sword Kings looked through the golden fire wall with anxiety and gnashed teeth. To get to them, they first had to get through Chow and her cold smile, though they were feeling a bit fearful. The girl is outrageous. But the problem is her dad. How strong is he? In the case he's even stronger than her, then we have it worse. Chasing did not sound so pleasant right now. Curse you, Bailey Yu, and your rotten report. We were all minding our business and would have kept it like this instead of offending this monster pair. Now that all gloves are off, we need to finish them now or suffer later. But how the hell are we to do that? They had deep frowns, and filled with blame for Bali Yu, cursing her to the high heavens. Whoosh! A sudden gale blew and a tall figure loomed over them from behind. An aged and rumbling voice shook the air. What happened? Why such a huge ruckus? Patriarch? Shuddering, the Sword Kings turned around at once and bowed. Greetings, Patriarch. Chapter 1079, Hard to Block. Chapter 1079, Hard to Block. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh! Invincible sword flashed before the three with coldness in his eyes. What happened here? Report. Patriarch, we were stopping Zhuofan and Ouyang Lingtian's group of 3 divine swords wielders. The trio tensed and answered at once. Bailey Yutian's beard shook, but then grinned. That's great then, the heads and the swords I wanted gathered in one place. Well, where are they? I ran off. The trio's faces twitched, feeling apprehensive as they glanced at Bailey Yutian shaking all over. His features twisted as he roared, ran off? How the hell did they just run off? Because. And why are you still standing here like fools and not going after them? Bailey Yutian cut through their stammering as he raged on. The trio looked at each other with bitter gazes, when Bailey Yutian finally scrounged up his courage to point at Shower. Patriarch, we failed you, stopped by this little girl. We couldn't do anything. Please show leniency, Patriarch. A little girl? Bailey Yutian narrowed his eyes, scanning Shower. So this is the one you say that blocked you? Yes, Patriarch, she's always been with that Zhuofan. Her innocent, cute and joyful manner is just a front for the real. Bam! Bailey Yuyun and the other two found themselves flung away by a sudden release of immense power, even as he talked. They bled once more, coughing and paling. Bailey Yutian's eyes burned hot with his anger. I don't need excuses. You're nothing but dead waste for even a little girl to stop you. Yes. The trio took the critique with a deep bow. Bailey Yutian turned his attention to Chower, showing off a cold smile. Ha ha ha, Devil Mountain isn't the empty lie I thought it to be. There's some truth to it, I see. Missy, you sure are something to stop these three, even if they're more or less garbage. Better believe it, humph. Chower scoffed and raised her cute face with excessive pride. Those three don't know reason, so I only set them straight. Old coot, if you know what's good for you, disappear from my sight. Dad said none of you can cross this line. Or what? Bailey Yutian smiled. Chower smirked, her eyes flashing coldly. What I'm going to do to old geezer like you is cremate you. You got quite the mouth on you. Bailey Yutian shook his head, giving a scornful look and smile. He just walked towards the golden fire, one step at a time, like he was out on a stroll. Missy, you're the first to ever talk to me like that since I started on my path. Show me then, just what skills you have to back up that overconfidence, ha ha ha. Bailey Yutian laughed, letting it loose as his bulk neared Chower. Chower stared at him, her face growing hard, then her hand flashed with a golden ball of fire. The violent and destructive air it gave spoke of death and horrors. Old coot, you asked for it. You only got yourself to blame for ending up in pieces by insisting on crossing the line. There's no line that can't be crossed, only the strength to do so. Glancing at the ball in Chower's hand and sensing its power, Bailey Yutian was first amazed then excited as he quickened his pace. He couldn't wait to test Chower's strength. So that's what got those three fools to eat dirt. Ha ha ha, not bad at all. I can feel the flood of power coming off it. Though it's not yours, miss, but to have it proves Devil Mountain is more than it seems. I so wish I could meet a real Devil Mountain expert. It would make death worth it. Oh, you're going to see one right now. Chower's eyes flashed and the dragon breath pill whistled through the air for Bailey Yutian. Boom! The golden light shot like a start, smashing for Bailey Yutian at top speed. It followed with a tremendous explosion, not unlike the previous one, shaking the world around for thousands of miles. The Golden Inferno released decimating shockwaves that engulfed half of the Sea Bright sect and destroyed veritable monuments, having survived for thousands of years. As for the mighty invincible sword himself, it got swallowed up by the raging flames. The Sword Kings gasped in panic, Patriarch. There was no answer, giving the sinking feeling the old expert's body crumbled under the onslaught of fire. The Sword Kings slumped in shock. Chower giggled and mocked, that's what you get for pushing it. And he still went on about seeing some Devil Mountain true expert. Happy now. I am none other than such an expert of Devil Mountain. So rest in pieces, hee hee hee. Ha ha ha, every true expert out there can use their own power to twist the world to their whim. An aged voice of disdain echoed from the flames, Miss, you've got a good talent, the makings of a great expert. It's a shame though, that you're quite far from being one, with your childish use of another's power. Allow me to show you what a true expert can do. Rumble. Lightning crackled all of a sudden and a savage sword wave crossed the skies and split the inferno. Invincible Sword appeared in sight, taking his time as he walked out, casual as before. With every step, rumbling echoed out. The golden flames crumbled with a sudden bang as purple lightning thundered high above, tearing into the golden fires until nothing remained. The inferno soon turned into a purple thunderstorm. Bailey Yutian thus became the overlord of this storm. With him here, the golden flames would never burn again. Patriarch! The Sword Kings cheered. Chao shook, looking at the old man in disbelief, and no way. Dragon Ancestor's dragon breath pill did nothing. What is he? Dragon breath pill, ha ha ha. Was that what you threw? Bailey Yutian's eyes shone with bloodthirst, his steps measured as he got closer to Chao. This toy is good enough to deal with a Sword King. It even made me twitch. Ha ha ha, how many years has it been since someone managed to make me feel numb? I'm really curious now as to who made this dragon breath pill. Though no matter how great, it's still a crutch, while true experts wield endless strength from within. That's what I want to fight, not some child throwing toys at me. So I will ask you again, Missy, does Devil Mountain have any experts? Ha ha ha. Chao's brow shook, staring hard at Invincible Sword's stature growing bigger as he neared. She flinched back in reflex, her hand holding another dragon breath pill. Bailey Yutian noticed and shook his head. Miss, so you chose to ignore me. I told you, I have no interest in such toys. Whoosh. Chao threw the second dragon breath pill and cut him off, then have another taste, geezer. Chapter 1080, Limit. Chapter 1080, Limit. Proofreader, Papatonks. Boom! Another glorious explosion shook the skies, with the raging fires leaping high above, from Chao's second dragon breath pill she threw at Bailey Yutian. The result was the same as the first time, unfortunately. Following the flashes of lightning, the fire soon got pulverized into nothing. Only the lightning remained, flashing across the skies, a hymn to the coming of an overlord. Bailey Yutian had no hair out of place, taking his time to walk ever nearer to the sweet girl with a smirk on his face. Miss, what you got may stop others, but never myself. Can you see why? Ha ha ha, because I am just that much stronger. Every law, limit, rule in this world is nothing to the truly strong, one such as I. Chao shivered, looking shocked and stumbling back. She had lost her confidence and was now sinking into terror. His strength is inhuman, like a sacred beast. But more of a fledgling, having yet to mature. Regardless, Chao still found it dismal how such an aberration walked this earth, besides her dear dad, of course. At least Zhuo Fan got a sovereign's legacy, while he... Chao's eyes widened, staring hard at the incoming firm steps with a lost look. Or maybe this old coot grasps the sword sovereign's essence. It all makes sense now, why Invincible Sword is so ridiculously strong compared to the other Sword Kings. He has come to touch upon the core of Sword Sovereign's swordsmanship, having gleaned into its fundamentals. Not even Zhuo Fan could top that. He was more quantity than quality, taking every legacy he got for a trial run and not delving deeper into their core values. As for Invincible Sword, he only had Sundering Sword swordsmanship, and even that was just a fraction from the Sundering Sword. This, however, proved enough to take him to the pinnacle of power in this domain. Zhuo Fan and Invincible Sword both learned sovereign paths. But as to who would come on top, be it the broad approach or the focused approach, remained to be seen. Though facts already tipped the balance in Zhuo Fan's favor. He had widened his gaze while Invincible Sword focused it instead, making it one of the main reasons for going after the other divine swords. He learned all the Sundering Sword art had to give him, and to go further, he needed the other arts to rise above this stagnation. Chao had lost her precious calm, her palms feeling clammy. She knew then that she wasn't facing some average cultivator, but a future Zhuo Fan. As for Zhuo Fan's capacity for growth, she based it off of Dragon Ancestor describing Zhuo Fan's limitless future. A sovereign inheritance was a huge deal. Even with a shoddy perception, you'd still rise above the masses. This went double for Invincible Sword and Zhuo Fan, cultivation geniuses the world had never seen. Add to that a sovereign's inheritance and they would become something the sacred beasts would come to pay attention to. Chower had the minor dragon breath pills dragon ancestor gave to her for protection, but they proved to be nothing but parlor tricks before the one grasping Sundering Sword's complete Sundering Sword art. I'm going to end you. Chower shook hard, staring at the man coming ever closer, and 5 dragon breath pills showed in her hand before throwing them all at him. Boom! The first unleashed sky-high flames upon contact with invincible sword. Before the golden inferno suffered the same fate the last 2 times, the second dragon breath pill came, unleashing another huge explosion. The second wave of flames overlapped the first, swallowing Bailey Yutian completely. Then came the last 3, throwing inferno after inferno at Bailey Yutian. The purple lightning flashed non-stop, to scatter the flames, but 5 raging fires were too much indeed. Even under the constant lightning strikes from the heavens, the fire never died out. The 3 sword kings grew grave once more with worry. Despite it all, Bailey Yutian's footsteps never wavered, still walking on, yet a slight frown was still noticeable. Ah! A sudden cry came from him, unleashing all his power. As the 5 searing waves of fire were about to enclose him, booms resounded as lightning gushed from within, tearing at the fires. The dreadful lightning flashed and punched a hole in the inferno, helping the lightning coming from above to attack it from the outside until no golden flames remained. The Sword Kings gasped, unwilling to believe what they were seeing. Patriarch's power exceeds that of the worlds? Bailey Yutian glanced at the other 2, his voice shaky. Any other Genesis stage expert relies on the world's power for their strength, even we, Sword Kings, are no different. Yet Patriarch. Yeah. Another Sword King nodded. Some say the world's power has a limit. If one comes to overcome it, they would be able to tear the world apart. I always thought it to be a myth. How can the world have a limit? Now I know that Patriarch had already attained this realm. It's inconceivable. We all saw how the world's power barely put a dent in the thick flames, yet the Patriarch's own strength cleaved them. What more proof is there? The other 2 nodded, their eyes shining with excitement. It was pride in their clan that the invincible sword was indeed the strongest in the 5 lands. Not even the world could stop him. They had no way of knowing that the world's power had no limit. It was this domain's scope that had a limit. A limit that not even Sword Kings could touch upon, but Bailey Yutian did. It was solid proof he had outgrown the mortal domain and could no longer be classified as such. The mortal domain was a mere dimension, array, that heavenly sovereign formed, thus having its limits. But like Bailey Yutian said, enough strength could crush those limits. He came before it, but only probing about, unable to understand its intricacies. He was still in the dark that he was among the very few in the mortal domain qualified to enter the sacred domain. Who? A biting wind swept the area, with a black dust blowing everywhere. Bailey Yutian stood in the air and smiled victoriously. Miss, 5 dragon breath pills can overlap, but it's unfortunate they couldn't combine into a single strike, coming utterly short of a true expert's might. The middle part, that of connecting them, is the biggest flaw. So no matter how many you throw at me, they can't, ugh. Bailey Yutian declared smugly, like instructing a child, but then found his audience wasn't there to humor his flair of the dramatic. The twerp is sly. Patriarch, she threw the 5 dragon breath pills not to beat you, but to run away. Bailey Yutian popped over and exclaimed. Paw! The resounding slap sent him reeling, with Bailey Yutian barking, you think I don't know that? Humph, don't just stand there, go and find her. I wanted Zhuofan and the 3 divine swords, but now I also want her. She thinks she can toy with me. Humph, I'll show her the real meaning of strength. Yes. They all bowed at once, following his orders. Meanwhile, Zhuofan's gang were speeding away when they heard a loud commotion behind that drew their attention. They gasped at the sight of the golden inferno. How is that we last so strong, and at such a young age? The flames barely held for a few seconds before purple lightning snuffed them out. Ouyang Lingtian cried out, invincible sword, that's his might when using the world's power. He caught up. Will the young girl be able to stop him? Hey Dad, don't worry, our Zhua clan's the strongest there is. A child can handle 3 lousy sword kings, so there's no way Invincible Sword stands a chance either against our clan's young miss. Ouyang Chongqing gave a dismissive wave. Ouyang Lingtian's face twitched. Boy, you sure switch camps fast, not waiting for me to die before relinquishing your history and ancestors. What are you saying, Dad? I'm still Ouyang and not turning my back on my ancestors. It's merely showing respect to my big brother. My big brother Zhua and I will do great things together. Ain't that glorious? Ouyang Lingtian rolled his eyes, turning serious as he glanced at Zhua Fan. Since he was of the Sea Bright sect, his son would become the sect's successor. Though with Zhua Fan being so outstanding, a real go-getter, he showed incredible potential and promise. For his son to follow him might not be such a bad idea after all. By all accounts, this was a breach of sect's rules, though Ouyang Lingtian turned a blind eye. Anyone would strive to grow, and only a fool would be blind to Zhua Fan's prospects to not follow. Although, Murong Shui always seemed to be against him, humph, spineless coward, falling in with devils. Boom! A huge explosion came from behind just then, with a golden glow reaching high in the sky, before it was soon covered in purple. Zhua Fan shook, stopping for once. There's no point rushing it. Chower can't hold them. Prepare to fight. Chapter 1081, Unfit. Chapter 1081, Unfit. Proofreader, Papatonks. What, fight? Seeing Zhua Fan stop, the rest halted as well, looking grave. Brother Zhua, are you absolutely sure Chower can't hold it? Zhua Fan gave a curt nod. In the last 2 explosions, the lightning always prevailed over the inferno. It's proof that Chower can't handle Invincible Sword. I wager they'll soon catch up and escaping with our speed is pointless. That's why, fight. Brows shook all over as faces sank in despair, balling their fists as fear creeped into their hearts. Besides the fact that all here were stragglers, not even at their best would they ever hope to stand a chance against that monster. Ouyang Lingtian was the most clear on that. He and the other 2 divine sword wielders' only hope was in Chower's godlike talent. This, however, turned out to be a bust as well, with the old freak coming to finish them off. Everyone shivered. Big brother Zhua, what are our chances? Ouyang Chongqing gazed at him with blinding hope. Everyone turned as well with burning gazes, including the 3 oldies here, all eager to know the answer to that question, having lost their backbone and awaited his instructions. Back when he was the Grand Marshal, they could still make use of that noggin on their shoulders, considering the 3 orders. Now though, they relinquished their cognition in favor of following Zhua Fan's orders. They were at the end of the rope and the only way out was with help. Any that fell in such dire straits would stoop to any low, would take any deal. They would forego using their own minds in overcoming to earn another's help. The help might come from a volatile person, but no matter how wretched the character or unreliable, his words were law to them. Not to mention Zhua Fan's intellect had been put to the test and prevailed. Their trust in him was blinding at this point. None had such complete faith in Zhua Fan until now, especially the ever-belligerent Murong Shui. Even she found herself with her fate in his hands. Despair was among the best ways to get people to listen and obey. How else would you explain the many plebeian revolts throughout history? Zhua Fan met their gaze with a knowing smile. Rest easy, with me here, nothing will happen. Big brother knows a way. You can overcome Invincible Sword. Ouyang Chongqing gasped, discovering another side of him. The boss is so tough he only used his pinky before, when he has the power to fight the best in the lands? Really? But we're peers, there's a limit to how strong you can get. His suspicion soon waned right after, recalling Chower pushing back 3 sword kings and she was even younger. As her father, there's nothing Big Brother Zhua can't do. The Zhua clan is a hidden den of monsters. Ouyang Chongqing cupped his hands in admiration. Big Brother Zhua is unfathomable, having not shown your talent for us to see. Now I get to see Big Brother's style, and I bet Big Brother and Invincible Sword's fight shall be the greatest and most glorious battle since the world came to be. It shall be our utmost honor to witness history being made." The rest looked at Zhuo Fan with astonishment. He can handle Invincible Sword, really? That's insane. Invincible Sword had trained for ages, but what about him? If he could meet the old monster head-on, these observers would be ashamed for the old coot. You cultivated for millennia yet can't even compare to a guy being around for just a few decades. What have you been doing all these years, lounging? Those from the Western lands were even more incredulous since the last time they saw him was barely 10 years ago, when they knew his strength. There was just no way one could jump ranks so much and so fast. Not just Invincible Sword would be depressed if he could, but even them, feeling like they wasted their years. "We've been hard at work training, so why are we still so far behind?" Everyone had tense looks, waiting for Zhuo Fan's answer. There was hope and denial on their faces. While it was a great boon for them if Zhuo Fan had such heft, the same couldn't be said for their pride and self-confidence. "What the hell have you been doing these years? How did you get so far ahead? We're not even in your shadow anymore." Gulping, Ouyang Lingtian and the other two were stressed out as they waited with fixed gazes on him, their thoughts and wishes in deep conflict. If Zhuo Fan declared he could fight Invincible Sword, they were the first to be in utter denial, taking out their sash and just hanging themselves with it. "If you're such an abomination, what does that make us?" Looking at them all, knowing full well the chaos in their hearts, Zhuo Fan chuckled and shook his head. "Friends, with my strength, even fighting peak Genesis experts is out of question, let alone Invincible Sword. I just happen to have some things on me, like Chower, from my master when times are tough. I can at least escape with my life." "Oh, I see." They all bobbed their heads, their rearing jealousy and envy curbed on the spot. "What did I tell you? There's no way humans could train so fast, that's simply insane. It turns out to be some special means instead. That explains the last outrageous power, it's all based on something else. One's cultivation can only grow through hard work after all." Ouyang Lingtian and the other two had this belief ingrained in their hearts, getting testy the minute someone challenged it. If Zhuo Fan and Chower had truly amassed in a few years what took 1,000, their minds would snap and would just curl up and cry in a corner. They thanked the heavens it wasn't so. This at least brought value to their bitter struggle to the top for years on end. They got to keep their ego intact, for now. Chongqing, slow and steady wins the race, tested and proved throughout the ages. Remember that. To be strong you need to train hard and not rely on props. When they fail, and they will, you only have yourself to rely on. Understand? Ouyang Lingtian used this chance to teach his wisdom to the child, though doing more for himself and washing away this defeat. It included Zhuo Fan in it as well, though they all understood it. Old-timers found their limelight stolen by youth, so they could only hang their seniority over their heads to show off. Ouyang Chongqing played along by nodding, the picture of an earnest pupil, yet rotten heart of disdain. Youths were pragmatic, looking only at the end and not the means. Sure, his old man's words held some truth in them, though here and now, they fell on deaf ears. To make it worse, if it came from Zhuo Fan for instance, he'd have his full attention. Whoosh! Purple flashed and Chower caught up to them. She looked panicked, rushing to Zhuo Fan. "Father, that old-timer is too strong. Dragon breath pill didn't do anything. He's on his way right now." "Ha ha ha, yes, but not on his way, having already arrived." Just as she finished, 4 whistling sounds were heard as Invincible Sword was upon them with the 3 Sword Kings in tow. Everyone flinched back from shock, even Chower. For the first time, she scampered behind Zhuo Fan, peeking at Bailey Yutian with fear. "The monster is here." Zhuo Fan lacked the obvious fear and distress prevalent running rampant in his group, smiling as he cupped his hands. "Sir, we meet again." "Indeed, Sir Zhuo, your absence weighed heavy on my heart." "Ha ha ha," giving a smirk, Bailey Yutian laughed, Devil Mountain is such a big name, living up to its reputation. I have now come to see it for what it is. Although, I'm afraid leaving without your head and the 3 divine swords is out of the question. Will Sir oblige? Zhuo Fan cocked an eyebrow, giving off a smirk of his own. Sir sure is forgetful of our deal to stay out of each other's way. Isn't it a little too soon to come for my head? Sir might want to go back on his word, but aren't you too eager, too undignified? An agreement is made between equal parties, something I considered you to be then. Not anymore. He squinted and gave an evil smile. If you wish the deal to hold, you will have to prove to me you have what it takes for me to honor it still. You don't say. Ha ha ha, then I guess the deal is off, here and now. Giving up so soon, sir? Ha ha ha, with your bluff seen through, you're sensible. That's where you're wrong, sir. Zhuo Fan grinned as Bailey Yutian laughed, his eyes disdainful. I found that from how Sir defined the deal that you're the one unfit for me to keep it. You're just too weak. Bailey Yutian shuddered, his manic smile frozen on his face as his expression darkened. Humph, Sir Zhuo called me forgetful, when you're even more so. I take it back, you're not sensible, but conceited. It might scare everyone else, but not me. You're only signing your death warrant. Chapter 1082, Showdown. Chapter 1082, Showdown. Proofreader, Papatonks. Bailey Yutian flicked his fingers. The sky turned purple from the lightning and a savage sword energy flew straight for Zhuo Fan. The pressure they felt spiked from that one strike, stalling everyone's breath and making them shiver. It even made their skin crack, scarlet blood seeping from their wounds, like they were ready to pop. Ouyang Ling Tian and the other 2 had bloody faces, unable to resist. Not even wielding divine swords proved enough to defend against this casual swipe from Bailey Yutian. Invincible sword, unstoppable and decimating. He held the greatest power in the world, relentless and crushing. Below this sword wave, all felt death breathing down their necks, turning icier and icier. Ha ha ha, Sir Zhuo, I just came from having tried your child's toy. Quite impressive, I might add, but far from enough to threaten me. Sir Zhuo, a father shouldn't be using the same method like your daughter in desperate times. You'd only disappoint me. Bailey Yutian laughed with disdain. The 3 sword kings looked smug seeing their boss smug, cackling on the inside. Mess with Patriarch and this is what you get. None can stand up to the Patriarch. Devil Mountain's dragon breath pill might deal with a sword king, but it's only a crude toy against Patriarch, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan squinted, facing the fierce winds and looked at the obnoxious 4 above with a cold smile. Invincible sword, don't get too happy. You're far from becoming unbeatable. I might not have such toys on me, though I'm partial to having pets. Since Sir is gracious enough to show us how it's done, I would very much appreciate your input on this little beastie. Zhuo Fan flicked his hand and the storage ring opened a portal. A fierce gale blew and the ground shook. The sword energy was right on top of the group, about to take their heads, when a huge sharp claw lashed out at it. The explosion rumbled out and the invincible sword's energy remnants faded off into nothing. A chilling wind passed as a wind shadowed the sun and the skies in its entirety. A single flap crushed stone and broke mountains. The endless purple lightning around got snuffed out as well under the biting gale. The invincible sword's dominance over the sky had been cut down to half its size as a 3-headed humongous bird with an azure flame on its forehead presented its glorious size to the world. It shrieked, the piercing sound deafening and reverberating in all directions. All spiritual beasts within 1,000 miles cowered in fear, prostrating before their king. That's. All gaped in shock and terror, including even Invincible Sword. Could this be the legendary imperial spiritual beast of the 9th level, the 3-headed crow? The Sword Kings were dumbstruck, face twitching and shaking hard. Patriarch, that's indeed the strongest spiritual beast, the 9th grade imperial 3-headed crow. Hardly anyone has seen it. To think it would make its appearance today. The Devil Mountain is a monster to even rear something of this caliber. Bailey Yuyan grew grave as he stared in disbelief. Ninth-level spiritual beasts are the strongest, said to be an emperor anywhere it went to all creatures. There has never been any man in the Five Lands history capable of surpassing such a legend. It was in fact human empires that caved under its claw and wingspan by the dozens. I just can't fathom how such an emperor of beasts would be willing to listen to some human. Patriarch, Devil Mountain. Bailey Yuyan shook in anxiety, his regret mounting. This expert could not be trifled with, having the might to subdue even the mightiest of beasts, a ninth-level spiritual beast. The real issue here was that they got on this mystical hidden sect's bad side now. How are we supposed to survive it? When the real experts feel like coming for retribution, not even the Patriarch might hold. Bailey Yuyan grew panicked, looking at Bailey Yutian in fear. Bailey Yutian knew what he wanted to say and hold his hand out to stop him, his smirk obvious as he stared in excitement at the huge beast. For thousands of years I've been in constant search for a worthy opponent, yet was disappointed every time. Provoking Devil Mountain might not have been wise, but to see a living legend, a ninth-level spiritual beast, is filling this old heart with glee, ha ha ha. Patriarch, that's not the problem here, it's the person who subdued it. I know that. Invincible Sword waved him off with impatience. Only a true expert can make a ninth-level spiritual beast bow. We've really stirred the hornet's nest this time and even I might feel its sting. But what of it? Do you three know how the Sword Star Empire came to be? In my prime, I've faced countless hardships and challenges that led to what you see today. Isn't it just another strong adversary that showed up? Just in time too, to curb this solitude I've endured for years and years. I can now feel young again. No matter how tough Devil Mountain is or how many experts come at me, I'll meet them head-on down to my last breath. Just like how I did back in the day and challenged the Five Lands. Ha ha ha, Devil Mountain, this is great. It's so good that you exist. Now I'm no longer alone, ha ha ha. An uninhibited mad laughter came from Invincible Sword as he stared at the three-headed crow, brimming with glee. The sundering sword appeared in his hand. As he felt the streaks of purple lightning flaring, his thirst for battle raged as his aura burst forth. In a blink, the skies changed. Lightning crackled, purple fighting to wrest control of the skies from the black winds. The Sword Kings fell back as Patriarch grew more and more excited, having never seen him so wild and violent. Now that the ninth-level spiritual beast appeared, it could handle all his power and he could finally let loose. For a man so crazed about being at the very top, it was the greatest stimulant. The three-headed crow started, hardly believing what he was seeing. Not even it had faced such a strong human, surprised one even appeared in this mortal domain. Invincible Sword was a man that even an imperial spiritual beast would respect. Ouyang Ling Tian and the others watched the three-headed crow with gaping mouths. Sir Zhua, the Devil Mountain even has something this outrageous? Well, they're good for errands and holding the door. Zhua Fan spoke heavily, staring at the beast and man about to duke it out. Even he began to feel some respect. Wisdom came with age, it was what everyone was saying. And the more one went on in years the more they gained and the more they feared losing any of it. Invincible Sword was the exception, age was just a number to him, while always going around challenging his limits with no fear of what it might do to his clan. No wonder he's the Invincible Sword, haha. He was at least leagues above all the other four so-called strongest in their lands. The three old-timers gawking from the sidelines earned Zhua Fan's displeasure. He was on the four-land side, facing off against the Invincible Sword. Yet when it came to respect, he found the enemy far more worthy of it. It was all due to these mighty experts cowering in the face of their enemy, while the Invincible Sword relished the challenge. That's what separates the strong from the weak. Propping doors? Sir Zhua, just what the hell is Devil Mountain even? Ouyang Ling Tian cried in shock. Zhua Fan smiled, his focus never leaving the fight that was to commence. He noticed the three-headed crow was shaking, looking just as thrilled. The 9th level spiritual beast wants to put the invincible sword's title to a real test, ha ha ha. How foolish. Zhuo Fan shook his head and continued to watch. He shouldn't be belittling the three, not when they were heroes of their own areas. But now, when life was on the line, in the face of this showdown, they only cared about self-preservation, although quite a logical action too. While he had no worry since it was all going as planned, the rest were on a razor's edge, from one situation into another. How could they handle that? He always emphasized on their toughness and bravery, but he was asking too much from them. Zhuo Fan emptied his mind then, finding a new world view then and there, opening his eyes. All were just too focused to notice his changed gaze, with even Zhuo Fan unable to understand what realization he came to. Chapter 1083, Man and Beast. Chapter 1083, Man and Beast. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh. Holding the sharp sundering sword, Bailey Yutian glanced with excitement from the crow to Zhuo Fan below. Ha ha ha, Sir Zhuo, I must thank you for giving me such a great adversary. I'll be sure to show my appreciation by giving you a proper burial once I slay it and keep your head. I'm humbled, which is why I'll be sure to gather your pieces and send them back to Sword Star Empire once my spirit animal tears you apart. The least I can do is not let your corpse be ravaged by wild beasts, as a token of our brief friendship, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan looked perky as well. The two stared at each other and burst out laughing. The audience was left dumbstruck, none able to understand what was happening, not even the three sword kings. They both talk about the other's demise, but what's the deal with using such a friendly tone? What baffled the sword kings more was how their patriarch sounded even genuine. It held no sarcasm, but true in his intent to pay back the favor. Who in the world is kind to their victim? Since when is giving them a burial being nice? Invincible Sword was just that content with saying such dreadful words, making all others numb. Ouyang Chongqing wanted clarification. Big brother, were you cursing each other just now? Of course not, we're just having a friendly chat, finding common ground even. Friendly? Common ground? I don't see it. Ouyang Chongqing was stumped. Zhuo Fan sighed, you haven't been around much and have no clue about a practitioner friendship. Being part of this circle of practitioners, you don't get to choose. Each of us wants the other dead, driven by our own interests. That, however, doesn't stop us from having mutual respect as well, showing it by looking after their corpse. This is how you treat an honorable opponent, completely natural. How's that natural? I didn't understand any of that. Ouyang Chongqing scratched his head, clueless still. Ouyang Lingtian took a moment to mule his words and then bowed to Zhuo Fan. We all admire Sir's conscience. Dad, you got what he said? Of course. The three old men laughed. Practitioners don't get to choose, ha ha ha. Smiley face. The author is taking the idiom literally, with the implied meaning that they don't get to choose where to die or if they get a burial. They turned serious then, their smiles falling, turning to the man and beast above with nothing but respect. Self-preservation no longer dominated their actions, standing tall like a true top expert of their land. Zhuo Fan nodded. No wonder they understand, being the head of their land. A practitioner must be willing to challenge, that's what makes him a fighter, rather than stretching his time on this earth for as long as he can. They sealed it off in their hearts, sealed themselves from the Tao in the secular world. This may be why their insights in the sacred weapons lack compared to the invincible sword. Their hearts were confined with trifles. Now their hearts are open. Whoosh! The three-headed crow flapped its huge wings, sending fierce winds around. It then shot for the invincible sword, talons at the ready to tear him apart, whistling through the air. Patriarch, look out! Rip him apart! The sword kings cried out while Chower cheered for their house pet. She was getting more than a little kick out of it, seeing invincible sword about to get it after picking on her. Clang! The invincible sword squinted, flicking the sword to block the claw, letting out a grating sound. The power exerted was absurd, cataclysmic, with invincible sword forced back as he defended, his arms bulging from strain and sweat formed on his brow. Having never seen Patriarch in such difficulty in battle, the Sword Kings were panicking. The rest, by contrast, were wild with joy. Ouyang Chongqing skipped over to Zhuo Fan to exclaim, "Big brother, if you had that precious, you should have taken out from the start and saved my dad and others the effort. I wanted to wait for the perfect timing to catch the invincible sword by surprise and end him. Now I had no choice but to let them face off." Zhuo Fan made up some lie on the spot. He couldn't outright say, "I was waiting for both sides to be crippled. That would be most rude." The excuse sounded clever too, with none judging his intellect. After all, he had done all the thinking for them all this time. No matter how suspicious this reason was, since Zhuo Fan said it, they had to believe it. Who here was the Grand Marshal anyway? Only Ouyang Ling Tian and the old-timers understood that the war didn't matter, only this battle. Ah! A howl echoed as the invincible sword tensed his legs and stood firm to stop his retreat. The invincible sword then pushed harder, flinging the humongous bulk of the three-headed crow back, making it roll in the air a couple times. The three pairs of eyes looked back with shock. "You're quite strong for a human. It speaks, just like that sea demon." Ouyang Chongqing shrieked, "Do all 9th level spiritual beasts speak? Is the sea demon at the same level?" The other paws then nodded, coming to the same conclusion. Only Zhuo Fan and Xiao knew the reason behind a 9th level spiritual beast could speak. The azure flame enlightened it. As for the sea demon, it was much worse than a puny spiritual beast. What did startle Zhuo Fan though, was that the invincible sword was able to fight a 9th level spiritual beast evenly. At this level, the beasts were king, not to mention this particular creature was the Kunpeng's right hand, a cut above the norm. Despite it all, the invincible sword pushed on. Does this mean that the invincible sword is at the stage of a spirit king? He's not one in the truest sense only because the domain blocks him. Zhuo Fan's mind was calculating and observing. His power went beyond anything and anyone, yet his cultivation stalled. It did not match the natural order. If the invincible sword gets any stronger, will the domain press harder on his cultivation? If his power overcame the limit of the domain, once he broke through he'd rise above the mortal realm, and he would incur heavenly tribulation. But with the sword sovereign's inheritance, heavenly tribulation might not mean instant death. But then what? Will he remain in the mortal domain or? Was the invincible sword the only true talent that reached this point in the long history of the mortal domain? There had to be generations of glorious talents and their centuries-long legends. With how the 5 divine swords existed since the beginning, the sword sovereign's inheritors couldn't amount to just these few. So where are they? If they ascended to the sacred domain, why hasn't there been word of any people coming from the mortal domain then? Zhuo Fan knew things didn't add up. The heavenly sovereign's domain wasn't merely made to trap sacred beasts. Shriek! The sudden cry pierced the skies and the ears of everyone. The three-headed crow cried out at the indignity of having a human push it back. Its huge wings sent swirling black wind straight for Bailey Yutian. Any hill or rock in their path were reduced to nothing, the wind holding the power of decay as it ate through anything it touched. Even the lightning streaking across the skies fared no better, turning the purple-hued heavens black from the winds. All felt a sudden chill as it whistled in their ears, their blood running cold. It was all done to swallow Bailey Yutian. The Sword Kings cried out once more, worried for their patriarch. Everyone else was in grave disbelief a Sword King would act like that. Though it became clear from the display that not even the best in the world might fare better against a 9th-level spiritual beast. As the darkness and the winds surrounded him, the invincible sword's eyes flashed and lightning sparked across the sword. Chapter 1084, 3 Sundering Sword Strikes. Chapter 1084, 3 Sundering Sword Strikes. Proofreader, Papatonks. 3 heads, be sure to give that old coot a good smacking for me. Xiao cheered from behind Zhuofan once she saw the dreadful powers clashing in the sky. Three-headed crow turned grim at its master's order, flapping his wings hard, black astral wind annihilation. Rumble. The winds flooded the sky like a stampede, encroaching on Invincible's sword, trapping him within and closing in to seal his fate. The pressure was enough to stick the robe to his body, pushing harder and harder on him. Even his bones were creaking. Patriarch. The Sword Kings cried out, sweating from worry. Against such power, the likes of which they had never seen before, they themselves would have died on the spot if they were in the Invincible Sword's stead right now. And that was just from the pressure alone. Once the winds truly struck, then their patriarch. They grew more restless as fear fed them worst-case scenarios. Their nails dug into their palms, drawing blood without them even knowing. Ouyang Chongqing and the others witnessed such a shocking scene with glee. The Invincible Sword's legend was about to die. Only Zhuofan and the three old-timers were calm. The end of this fight between the man and beast wasn't just a mere conclusion to the war, but also the declaration of who stood at the top, who was the strongest. This was a practitioner's honor and conviction, something no profane reason could stain. Zhuofan felt this on his own skin, thus he watched this fight for no other reason than that. They all wanted to see the shocking showdown of the strongest, and how far they were from the top. Cough. As the power grew more savage in its approach, it caused his old bones to stiffen up. And with any flaring of its aura, pain speared through his whole body. What was truly astounding was that he was sweating as well. Bailey Yutian gnashed his teeth to bear through it, even as he wore an exciting smile and a lively gaze. He did not fear it, but relished it. He, how many years has it been since I felt such pain? This is a battle. This is how I should live, ha ha ha. Laughing on the inside, Bailey Yutian shouted and gripped his sword tighter. His whole body shone purple while the sundering sword flickered with lightning. First of the three sundering sword strikes, all-conquering. Whoosh! As the black winds were upon him, Bailey Yutian's hand tightened. His bones creaked and his body unleashed surges of lightning. With a sudden shift, a sword wave was unleashed in every direction, sweeping all in its path. Rumble. The sky thundered and the earth boiled as everything around quaked. From the Invincible Sword, a powerful purple lightning storm spread out, and as it met the black winds, they stalled for a second before decimating the winds. The purple lightning destroyed everything in its path, retaking back control of the skies, bringing back its purple hues. The terrible lightning slammed from up above, like performing a victory dance. Bam! Three-headed crow was flung back, flipping a dozen times, his eyes wild from shock. How can a mere human? Paw! It was too soon to be amazed as a sudden explosion came from its body, burning through his feathers. The stench of it filled its nose. Three-headed crow was overwhelmed, looking at the wound as it let out black smoke in disbelief. A human actually wounded me? This was a wound-sundering sword made. The Invincible Sword used the chance when the black winds were countered to harm him. The audience gaped at such an outcome. Even the Sword Kings were flabbergasted. They said none could fight a 9th-level Imperial beast, but now it was wounded. What made it worse was that it came in retaliation from its own attack. This is outrageous. They started off believing Patriarch would have a hard time even escaping the Black Wind's attack, since it came from a 9th-level Imperial beast. Only to witness the impossible. Patriarch crushed those winds and used the opening to strike back as well, making history. The Invincible Sword is worthy of his name. The Sword Kings went wild with joy. The Patriarch is our damn greatest pride. By contrast, Ouyang Lingtian's group mood sank as they all gave heavy sighs. Not even a 9th-level Imperial beast can deal with the old guy. Is he too strong? Zhuofan and the old-timers were amazed as well, watching on to see how it would end. Who? The Invincible Sword was short of breath, wiping his sweaty brow and looking exhausted from the strain the strike put on him. He wasn't worried though, but thrilled, filled with thirst for battle. He got so giddy that he was willing to squeeze the other in a bear hug, if it were a human. "Brother, what took you so long to see me? Why haven't we met already? I've been so lonely, all by myself for ages, ha ha ha." Three-headed crow's feelings were anything but mutual, wearing a heavy expression. It was a mighty ninth-level imperial beast, with the whole mortal domain as its turf. Except for those really exceptional few out there, it feared nothing. It turned out, however, he got pushed back twice when fighting some average human. The annoyance was turning into hatred. All spiritual beasts were above humans when it came to power. Spiritual beasts of any grade were seen as either inferior, average, or superior. The first two could match a peak human expert, while the superior beasts were a cut above even that, able to stand against those truly strong humans. Three-headed crow was a ninth-level spiritual beast, beyond superior even, the best of the best. Add in Kunpeng's teachings, it was no longer limited to the mortal domain's power scale. Logic would say it was second only to the sacred beasts in the mortal domain, and not any human in existence. Its pride thus could not accept how an inferior human being actually came to harm it. Where would its dignity be among fellow spiritual beasts? And worse, what would it tell Kunpeng? Had it no pride? Three-headed crow was outraged, shaking its heads and glaring at the invincible sword with intent to kill. Spiritual beasts lacked the admiration humans had for true experts. "You shamed me and now I'll kill you." It was just that simple for beasts. It was so enraged its fury was just short combusting. Chower, the cute thing, was so considerate she fanned the flames. "Three heads, if you lose, I'm going to tell the chief. Doesn't Uncle hate letting go of others? He sent you to help yet you come back humiliated. Is there no one under him good at anything? We might as well not even ask for help the next time, let him retire instead." Three-headed crow saw the warning in Chower's gaze and sighed. "You are the company you keep. This girl is as twisted as that Zhua fan, twisting the knife where it hurts. And hurt, it does." Three-headed crow feared nothing but the sacred beasts. Now Kunpeng sent him on an errand, under another's command. "It looks like having this lass fanning the flames will make my life hell. Curse you, spoiled brat, getting so smug for having the sundering Thunder Phoenix inheritance. Stop playing cute with me, you're nothing but a 6th-level spiritual beast. You dare tell me what to do? Your mom was shivering every time she saw me. Why not me instead? We're both birds, so why can't I catch a lucky break? It pisses me off." Sighing hard, Three-headed crow's mood sank as his thoughts took a worse turn. Though not like it could talk back to her, since things were different now, a reborn phoenix and all that nonsense. The lass will soon be just another boss. Three-headed crow's cold eyes turned to its only target, the invincible sword. It's all his fault and today he'll die. Chapter 1085, Fatality. Chapter 1085, Fatality. Proofreader, Papatonks. Who? Three-headed crow's azure flame above its forehead flickered wildly like candlelight. Its eyes, however, were cold and icy, focused solely on the invincible sword who stood across from it. Picking up on its thirst for his death, Bailey Yutian grinned, holding his sword in both hands fully intent to match it with his own lust for battle. "Come, foul beast, try my second attack of the 3 sundering sword strikes." "How dare you?" Three-headed crow shuddered, shrieking, "A wretched human dares challenge my authority? You have a death wish." Three-headed crow shook and the azure flame on its forehead expanded in size, like an explosion, before shrinking back to cover the crow. Who? With a mighty cry, the crow had turned into an azure firebird. Judging from the pressure increase, it had to be 10 times as strong at least. It left the audience gasping and wide-eyed. Ouyang Chongqing and the Sword Kings were equally shocked. The crow was strong enough as it was, yet here it went going even further in displaying its complete superiority over them. The invincible sword barely fought back against it the first time, which meant now he would fall short. Ouyang Chongqing and the rest's faces shone with hope, while the Sword Kings sank in the pits of despair, high-strung and worried. Patriarch. Bailey Yutian stared at the huge bird of fire, eyes calm and gesturing, "Come, foul beast. Pretentious fool." Three-headed crow squinted in anger, shouting as it flapped its wings to rush Bailey Yutian, "Human, bear witness to a king's might, earth-crushing claw." Whoosh! As it dived to attack, two claws formed from azure flame, bearing down on Bailey Yutian. The air warped as it traveled, giving the illusion that space itself was melting. The azure claws of fire arrived in an instant, the blistering heat twisting the robe on Bailey Yutian, about to burst into flames. Not even the Yuan Qi protecting the best in the world could fend off this deadly fire and its effect. The Sword Kings were frantic. What fire is that? Why can't Patriarch fend off the heat? Once it explodes, then Patriarch. A heavy frown set in, their minds filled with disastrous scenarios. Ouyang Chongqing clenched his fists hard, beyond thrilled. The old monster is done in at last, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan and the old-timers remained silent. Second sword of the three sundering sword strikes, obliterate. As the fire claws neared, Bailey Yutian's eyes shone and gripped his sword with conviction. Following his shout, the sword slashed forward with all the might his aged, yet fit, body had to offer. Whoosh! Unlike with the previous flashy and spectacular strike, Bailey Yutian released a thin sword energy this time. Despite its dull and flat appearance, this sword energy felt to have contained even more power than the last. It was also made evident from Bailey Yutian huffing for breath at the exertion. All looked curious. How could such a plain sword energy take so much out of him? It was made apparent soon enough. The sword wave clashed with the flaming claws, with everyone expecting to see nothing more than a blip where the small attack hit the claws, of no effect. What followed instead was endless explosions as violent lightning ran rampant from within the flaming claws, swallowing them from the inside. This was just the start. All watched in stunned silence as the tiny sword energy shot in and out of the fire claws, leaving behind a streak of lightning that consumed the skies. Not even the azure flame stood a chance against the ever-encroaching purple. As the lightning grew, the huge flaming claws were swallowed in it, while the sword energy shot through them and for the three-headed crow. How is this possible? Three-headed crow's eyes widened from shock. As the purple sword wave came head-on, it raised its own fire claw to grab for it. Rumble. On contact, the tiny sword wave exploded in a glorious fashion, unleashing a thunderstorm like no other, singeing the crow's body as it struck and swallowed it. The startling and frightening explosions that followed only amplified the dread felt from seeing lightning engulf the skies and the humongous crow along with them. The others stared blankly, incredulous how so much destruction could be packed into something so tiny. Why did that old guy's attack look so plain yet so devastating? Did the 9th-level spiritual beast fall for it? Zhuo Fan mused and nodded in realization, so that's why it's called obliterate. All power is focused on one spot followed by a violent release that can submerge and destroy everything. Smiley face, he analyzed the individual characters that make up the word. First means bury, cover, submerge etc., while the second means exterminate, destroy, etc. Yes, the Sundering Sword is essentially a tool for pure destruction. The Invincible Sword's insights are worlds beyond ours. Ouyang Lingtian sighed, seeing that focused destructive force only proves it, needing an amazing talent to control such wild power. The Invincible Sword is worthy of his name, the Peak Practitioner. The other two nodded with utter calm, despite this meaning that the Invincible Sword won and would spell doom to them all. They had broken off from the mortal affairs, gleaning into the world's nature. Whoosh! A black shadow streaked across the endless lightning above as three-headed crow used its powerful bulk to fly out. It had lost its majestic air from before, however, now looking worse for wear. The only azure flame remaining burning was the feeble mote on the forehead. Even its plumage was singed, stripping away more of a 9th-level imperial beast's prestige. All of this was caused by one man, the strongest human. Three-headed crow felt its entire honor had been dragged through the mud. Its eyes burned with hatred for the old guy, screeching, "Rotten human, you have slighted me for the last time. Now you die." Three-headed crow shot for the invincible sword. Its speed belied its now worse state, filled with power and vigor. Humans had spiritual beasts beaten when it came to smarts, but their bodies were leagues above. It had suffered an affront to his dignity with the invincible sword landing 2 strikes on it, but at the end of it all, the damage it suffered was only skin deep. The invincible sword, instead, was the one who neared exhaustion from those attacks, panting. This was a gap between spiritual beasts and humans. The spiritual beasts' bodies were just too damn tough. Sword Kings knew this too and cried out, "Patriarch!" Whoosh! Bailey Yutian's wave cut them off. Taking deep breaths, he forced himself, although with a pale face and weakened body, to stand tall. He even smiled in excitement. "I have roamed the world undefeated with these 3 strikes, only ever forced to use the first. Never has the chance presented itself or required the use of all 3. It's because no one could take them on. This time, ha ha ha, I'm relishing the fact I can use them all. Truly a joy, ha ha ha. Three-headed crow, thank you for fulfilling my lifelong wish and allowing me to fight with all I have." Bailey Yutian held his sword, his eyes sharp as he gave an effusive smile. Third sword of the 3 sundering sword strikes, fatality. Chapter 1086, Apex Battle. Chapter 1086, Apex Battle. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh! The sundering sword in the invincible sword's hand flashed purple and lightning snaked its blade. His eyes stared at it, and he started fading in and out of sight right under everyone's eyes. It gave off the feeling that the world was going along with the strike's build-up. Ouyang Chongqing slapped his head. What kind of skill is the old guy using? Why is his body warping like that? One with the sword and nature. Zhua Fan cried out, "Bailey Yutian's genius is without equal in this world. His insights in the way of the sword are so great, all he needs is the right cultivation level to ascend. Brother Zhua, he's at the top already, what ascending? There's hardly anyone in the 5 lands that can match up to him, maybe not even a 9th-level spiritual beast. I'm not talking about the lands, but..." Zhua Fan's brow shook, shaking his head and letting his voice trail off. Bailey Yutian had achieved the peak in terms of swordsmanship, with cultivation being the only thing holding him back from unleashing its full power. If he were a saint right now, he'd already be worthy as the next sovereign. Zhua Fan was after the same stage as well. Though the sovereign stage was beyond arduous to reach. One not only needed to have adequate cultivation, but also needed insights in a path that made him one with nature. Many peak saints had strength while lacking true enlightenment. The invincible sword here had attained the hardest requirement first. All that he needed now was time. But with the 10 paths to heaven having been taken, no one could become a sovereign even by having the right to. The world's nature prevented it. There could never be an influx of true experts to maintain balance in the world. For the invincible sword to become a sovereign, he needed to take one off his perch first, the greatest problem for posterity, Zhua Fan included. He was after the same stage as well, working hard each day to cover all bases, mental, spiritual and physical. And not just to reach it, but to fight one as well, to steal the throne. The only unknown in his plan was how many sovereigns were still around in the sacred domain and if there were any vacancies. He never heard anything about the 10 emperors vanishing while in the sacred domain, now even more so. All he could do was get ready. In case of any challenge that might come, he'd cross that bridge when he got there. Zhua Fan kept watching the invincible sword, his respect mounting. Anyone qualified to be a sovereign was a rarity, making it rest heavily on fate whether such fortune might befall you of all people. Ouyang Ling Tian looked startled. The old-timers, having trained in the sword, could sense more than any just how incredible the invincible sword's attainment was, never leaving him out of their sights. Who? Sending biting winds, three-headed crow charged head-on with its sharp claws primed to tear Bailey Yutian's skull off his shoulders. Bailey Yutian heard the whistling of the wind and the sword finally moved. Making a completely plain swing, Bailey Yutian faded in and out while lightning exploded as a purple sword wave flew at the three-headed crow. It laughed in mockery, "Ha ha ha, have you gone senile, old fool? You saw how your sword energy can't do anything to me. I easily crushed it last time and now you're using it again." A sudden groan cut him off, followed by spraying blood dyeing the skies red as it powered down like rain. Three-headed crow froze, jerking its head to look down in utter shock. How? The majestic claw that whistled through the air with incredible power, and his pride, was now gone, leaving behind a perfect cut. The sword energy had robbed it from it. It was stupefied. It was a 9th-level Imperial beast, the toughest there was, yet it just got sliced from some sword energy. It saw his sword energy's power already too, those previous 2 strikes hardly did anything to him. So what made this plain sword energy so damn special? This is just too freaky. Three-headed crow's 6 eyes were lost in utter confusion. Its mind had been made aware and became quite smart as well, perfectly capable of judging when to dodge or not. It never got within the range of the sacred weapon, since it would be easy for it to cause harm. While a human wielded it, any sword energy couldn't. This was where it was stuck. Bailey Yutian smirked at its conundrum, his body fading out once more as he unleashed another sword energy on its wing. Whoosh! Blood gushed once more as a huge wing fell and the three-headed crow stood there too shocked to even sense it. How? Humph, this strike is called fatality, meaning demise. Bailey Yutian grinned, showing his pearly whites, no matter what I face, I will cut it with fatality. I am holding the sundering sword in my hand, sundering the heavens with it. What else is there that can't be severed? Bailey Yutian turned as he shouted, now fading in as he slashed hard at the three-headed crow's head. Wait! Whoosh! Three-headed crow's eyes were wide with dread, about to beg, but the invincible sword's unstoppable attack had already passed. The sword wave flitted through it, leaving behind a motionless three-headed crow. Slowly, its huge bulk peeled in two, crashing down on the ground and kicking up a cloud of dust. The terror in those 6 eyes was the last expression it had as the azure flame died along with its life. The apex battle between the strongest human and peak spiritual beast had reached a most shocking conclusion that none saw it coming. Everyone was too out of it to speak. Ouyang Chongqing felt like crying, despair coming crashing down harder after having tasted hope. Brother Zhua even used his last card, a 9th-level spiritual beast no less, but this monster just won't die. Doesn't this mean it'll be our turn to kill us? The Sword Kings went wild with joy. Patriarch had crushed a 9th-level Imperial beast all by himself. Amazing! The invincible sword's name will travel the far reaches of the world, not just among humans, but even among spiritual beasts. Now nothing can stand up to Patriarch. Now this is the true invincible sword. Zhua Fan and the old-timers weren't so taken by emotion, looking at the humongous corpse with a heavy heart. They were not relating its fate with theirs, but weighing the challenging future ahead. Before them was the peak power across the lands, and also their goal. Even Zhua Fan was solemnly watching the hovering invincible sword above. The invincible sword, the peak of mortal domain, to think anyone could attain such heights in a limited and barren world. Going further will mean being worthy of the sovereign stage. I strive for the sovereign stage just as well, and to reach it, I need to get to this level before returning to sacred domain. Peak of Genesis stage, the strongest in mortal domain, that's the bare minimum if I want to challenge a heavenly sovereign when I return. Zhua Fan stared hard at Invincible Sword, an evil grin creeping on his face. Invincible Sword, you'll be my final rival in the mortal domain. The moment I surpass you will be the time I leave this world. I just hope you'll still be around to be my stepping stone, ha ha ha. Who? Oblivious to Zhua Fan painting a target on his back, Bailey Yutian's breathing was ragged, paling harder as he became weaker. Using all 3 strikes took a toll on his aged body, feeling how much it really was for the first time. But he did not mind it one bit, looking refreshed despite the waned face. He turned to Zhuo Fan, "Ha ha ha, Sir Zhuo, thank you for that, I've greatly enjoyed myself. It's a shame, I ended up winning. So going by our agreement, I'll be taking that head and burying you." Bailey Yutian pointed the sword at him with a cold smile. The Sword King flew next to Bailey Yutian, looking smug and arrogant. "Well, now can you face the facts?" "Humph." Chapter 1087, Chilling Breeze. Chapter 1087, Chilling Breeze. Proofreader, Papatonks. Heart sinking, everyone flinched back from fear, now that this evil was coming for them. They still gave Zhuo Fan hopeful looks, like looking at their last lifeline to save them from this despair and terror. "Bro, do you have anything else?" Zhuo Fan muttered under his breath, then raised his hands to give a light clap, not looking the least bit terrified like his peers. Clap. Ouyang Ling Tian and the old-timers stood at his side with a grave look, picking up on his intent behind such a gesture. The invincible sword's brow shook, looking confused. "Sir, you're too nice, and the right thing to do is thank you for such a favor." The crisp clapping halted and Zhuo Fan said, "Thank you for making us witness such a rare showdown, of letting me peer into the heights of humanity's cultivation. It allowed me to have a clear goal, and for that, you have my deepest gratitude." Zhuo Fan leaned and offered a sincere bow. Ouyang Ling Tian and the other two followed along. The Sword King's faces twitched, not getting anything. What's this guy up to this time? Ouyang Chongqing's group were dumbstruck. "Big brother Zhuo, Dad, what are you all doing? That monster's here to kill us and you're here bowing? You should be thinking hard on how to get us out of this mess, for crying out loud. You don't get it, Chongqing." Ouyang Ling Tian broke the silence. "In our world, practitioners don't get to choose. Remember that. All our affairs belong to this circle, but as a practitioner, a cultivator, this bow is a tribute to the strong. By not bowing now, then the secular world is holding you back and preventing you from ever reaching the top. We have been around for far too long that we've forgotten our initial goal for Tao along the way. Now, having met Sir Zhuo, his actions and words have opened our eyes. People may be practitioners, but their hearts fall behind. We've been wrong for too long." Murong Lai sighed with wisdom, the trio giving Zhuo Fan another look of respect. As a fellow cultivator, this young man understood this truth better than these old relics, who'd forgotten. That was why they fell short. Ouyang Chongqing gave them a blank stare, then jerked, recalling the monster hanging over their heads. The invincible sword looked to be sympathizing with them, his gaze showing a rare and calm expression, actually coming to see the four as equals. This never would have happened before. The invincible sword was the best of the best, be it among humans or beast. Who could be his equal? This time, however, he had such a gaze. His Sword Kings were baffled. Putting away the sword, the invincible sword cupped his hands, filled with respect. "I've been roaming the lands in solitude, but now I've finally met true fellow practitioners. Sir Zhuo especially, so young yet so enlightened to Tao, neither arrogant nor impulsive. You have my respect. It's a true loss that our intentions align, but not our positions. I am thus forced, by our circle of practitioners, to take your heads. Especially, Sir Zhuo, yours is an absolute must. It has been my greatest fortune to have met you today, Sir Zhuo, but now it's time to say goodbye." Bailey Yutian sighed one last time in regret, but then his eyes steeled, pointing the sword at Zhuo Fan with the intent to end him. Ouyang Chongqing was on the verge of crying. He still thought Zhuo Fan was taking the refined approach with the invincible sword, appealing to his heroism to instill fondness in another hero so they'd all make up in the end. The thing was, the old freak was buying it. That was until he flipped and drew his sword. "Brother Zhuo, he ruined your last feelings, so what do we do now? If only I knew this, I wouldn't have complimented him and just died. Now I'm not just ashamed but also getting killed. How could he possibly understand these true practitioners' feelings? At the very least, they were all clear on their grudges and affairs, public and private, and respect had no part in this at all. By refusing to admit the opponent's strength, you yourself would never grow either. Your potential would be crushed by your own denials. Easier said than done, such people being rarities. As Zhuo Fan took the lead, Ouyang Lingtian and the old-timers realized this truth as well, earning them the invincible sword's own respect as well, but also fueling his desire to kill Zhuo Fan. He knew the youth would soar and one day would threaten him. He might be searching for a good opponent, but finding one with the potential only filled him with fear. He had to snuff it out. A human heart was wrecked with contradictions and dissonance, something not even the best could escape from. The invincible sword lifted, humming softly, the eulogy of all here into hell. Ouyang Lingtian was wounded heavily, but felt no fear, pointing his sword at the sky. The old-timers were finally doing this not for anyone else, neither to defend, but to challenge the very top, for their own path forward. A Tao heart warded all fears, for having the world within, one understood all. Here and now, the top of their respective land finally showed the strength they should have. The Sword Kings could even sense the trio's change, despite how weakened they were. It was as if energy gathered around them from the world, the same with Patriarch. Their hearts had grown. The Sword King's brows tense, hearts sinking. They must die here and now, before they grow so strong they might even surpass Sword Kings. They have to die now, to avoid a worse future. Ouyang Chongqing was clearly blind to the change, sweating buckets. There's no way 3 wrecked people can defeat that monster. It's over, this is the end. Wait. The one-sided battle was on the cusp of igniting when Zhuo Fan shouted, "Sir, I recommend you don't take it further and just fall back." Afraid, is it? Ha ha ha, not fear, but reluctance. Zhuo Fan sighed, I didn't care much about your fate so far, but seeing your battle made me realize that you're an opponent I'll have to take down myself. My strength is lacking now, so I'd like for you to keep living, for when I personally come to challenge you. I'd hate to end you now. Bailey Yutian started, then cracked up, Sir Zhuo, you sure know how to speak in riddles. Not even I understand you. If you have the power now, why wait to kill me? If you do not, why then speak of wanting my life? Why on earth would I let you go just to bring me more trouble? Sir Invincible Sword, there's nothing conflicting about it. Zhuo Fan smiled, I want your life, but would hate to do it any other way than with my own fist. It would rob both of us of an enjoyable battle. So I say Sir should save his energy, to let us live so that we may settle our fight fair and square. The winner enters Devil Mountain and the loser will be buried in the dirt. The Invincible Sword's eyes shook as he cried out, Devil Mountain? Aren't you part of it? Why would you want to enter it? To be frank, I came from Devil Mountain, but can't return due to lack of strength. Shaking his head, Zhuo Fan opened his heart to the one opponent he recognized, Sir, the 5 lands are tiny. Only when entering Devil Mountain will you know the true world of the strong. There's an endless amount of others above you. Though when it comes to talent, there are rarities. All you need now is a way in. On the day of our battle, you'll get your ticket. If I fail, it proves I'm not worthy to return, you are doing it for me. Bailey Yutian was plagued with indecision. Bailey Yuyan urged, Patriarch, the punk's words are poison. One minute he says he's from Devil Mountain, the other that he can't return. What kind of sect wouldn't allow the return of their disciples? He knows he's on death's door and clings to anything to fool us into letting him live. You mustn't let him get to you. Bailey Yutian glared at Zhuo Fan, though deciding still came hard. Devil Mountain is filled with experts? Beyond anything you can imagine. Zhuo Fan nodded, looking nervous as he recalled those days, there's no end to their legends. Your strength could hardly even qualify. The dragon breath pill Sir calls it a toy, ha ha ha, well, it's even less than one in Devil Mountain. But I have something way better, something that would scatter your ashes in the wind. Would Sir like to see? Bailey Yutian stared hard, unable to say a word. It was then that a thick fog spread from the sea inland, carrying biting cold winds. Chapter 1088, Ice Mountain. Chapter 1088, Ice Mountain. Proofreader, Papatonks. Patriarch, the punk is only trying to confuse us. Bailey Yuyan spoke at once, seeing Bailey Yutian sinking in contemplation. The Devil Mountain may be as terrible as he pictures it, but why then is he taking such careful steps with us? Why hasn't Devil Mountain sent even one elder to guard him? It doesn't add up. Is the sect that confident their disciple can roam the world all alone? Even as training, there should at least be some hidden guardian watching over him. Here he is, on his last leg, yet we see no trace of anyone coming to shield him. Are you saying there's no Devil Mountain? Exactly, or even if there is, it can't be as ridiculous as he makes it sound like. Bailey Yuyan nodded, staring confidently at Bailey Yutian. Patriarch, you've been roaming the lands for millennia and yet didn't catch a word of something so overblown. As Sir is the pinnacle of the 5 lands, if you don't know its secrets, then no one does. The greatest doubt comes from this kid, being the only one who spread the so-called legend of Devil Mountain. He's its only disciple we've seen for thousands of years. Isn't that the least bit strange? How can it be just one training outside in all these years? For this reason I chose to cut in. It's nothing more than a huge lie cooked up by this guy alone to fool all heroes and cover his back. The invincible sword's brow trembled, his face sinking as he glared at Zhuo Fan. Quite right, Sir Zhuo, how is it you're the only one from Devil Mountain in all these years? Are you lying to me? The invincible sword roared as his fury was evident in his sharp stare, along with the thirst for blood. Zhuo Fan shook his head, sighing, presenting the thunder ring. Since Sir doesn't believe it, there's no avoiding a fight. It pains me being forced to end such a good future opponent like this, but it is what it is. With regret on his face, Zhuo Fan's eyes went cold as his ring released a scorching and wild power. The others' hearts jumped in their chest knowing a fight would break out. Their fists clenched, their brows sweaty. None knew just how effective the calm Zhuo Fan was in dealing with the best there was. Anything that might reveal it to be all a lie would doom them all. The invincible sword mocked the energy his ring released, again with the dragon breath pill. Doesn't your family have any other toys? It's nothing to me. Yes, a dragon breath pill indeed, although mine is leagues beyond that of Chower. Sir, better watch it. Zhuo Fan had a smile plastered on his face in complete confidence. Again with the lying? You sure know how to act, humph. There was nothing on Zhuo Fan telling the invincible sword this was all a ruse, but he still wasn't buying it. He was utterly convinced Zhuo Fan was bluffing, so he might as well finish this already. Well, of course there were no tells to Zhuo Fan's acting, since all Zhuo Fan told was the truth. The instant he struck, there would be no trace of the old man behind. Bailey Yutian chose to listen to his suck-up advisor instead, now set on marching to his doom as he was ready to strike with the divine sword. Zhuo Fan's ring flashed brighter and hotter as a consequence. To the unsuspecting old man, this fight about to begin, if one could call it that, was a foregone conclusion. But could anyone from the mortal domain take on the full might of a dragon breath pill? Not likely, even if that someone was the invincible sword himself. Who? The wind picked up around them, stronger and stronger, the cold seeping into their bones and making all shiver, even the invincible sword. That's cold. The experts gasped in confusion. As Sword King level experts, mere cold was a thing of the past, so how come a light breeze got them shivering? The invincible sword was frowning hard, pausing his attack. Damn it, he's here. Ouyang Ling Tian was the only one aware of the situation, his face filled with fear and shaking like a leaf. Everyone's eyes were on him. He wasn't scared when facing the invincible sword, so how come he's panicking now? What out there could be more scary than the invincible sword? Ouyang Chongqing glanced at his dad and asked, "Dad, who are you talking about?" Ring. The 4 divine swords present began to shake in their grasps, in excitement and battle-hungry. They were moving so hard they almost flew off. Everyone looked wide-eyed at the wild divine swords, with Bailey Yutian the most shocked of all. What's going on? What did you do to the sundering sword? No one touched it, not while you're holding it. Ouyang Ling Tian struggled to get Heaven's sealing sword under control while rolling his eyes. It's him, the monster is here. Who? Everyone cried back. North Sea's overlord, the sea demon. Ouyang Ling Tian turned in the sea's direction, watching as the thick fog engulfed the sea bright sect. Cracking ice was heard as the cold spread and grew stronger, covering half the sect in a thick layer, while the black fog prevented anyone from peering through it. And it was still going. Damn, that monster would never attack our sect, not while the barrier was in place. With it gone, he just showed up instantly. All turned north as well, looking startled and shocked. The invincible sword was the only one excited. Ha ha ha, North Sea's sea demon's reputation precedes him. I've always wanted to meet him. I wonder if he'll fare any better than the 9th level Imperial three-headed crow. By all means, go for it if you have a death wish. Zhuo Fan knew the truth and rolled his eyes. Even so, he gazed at the fog hard, sharing a look with Qiao. They both shot into the black fog. Heaven's sealing CAO, here I come. Sir Zhuo, don't. Ouyang Ling Tian cried out, but father and daughter ignored him. The invincible sword followed right after Zhuo Fan. Patriarch. The Sword Kings shouted this time around, though he wasn't one to listen on a good day, let alone now. The black mist swallowed the invincible sword in seconds, leaving the worried Sword Kings behind. Brother Yun, what do we do? The other two turned to their elder. Bailey Yuyun thought hard and then flew in the invincible sword's direction. Our duty is to protect the Patriarch. Yes. The others nodded and followed him into the encroaching blackness. Ouyang Changqing's team was stumped. What now? Their enemies just ran off. Having lost their target, they just stood there lost, without meaning or purpose. Ouyang Ling Tian, the only one knowledgeable here, looked at the swiftly encroaching darkness and said, don't just stand there and flee. Once the mist takes you, there's no escape. Then Brother Zhuo. Sir Zhuo came to the North Sea for the sea demon. The rest is up to him. Ouyang Ling Tian sighed and turned to the juniors. Go, I'll use the Heaven's sealing sword to stop the black mist from taking you. The sea demon is unlike the invincible sword, harder than you will ever know. Now run. Ouyang Ling Tian carried his wounded body as he flew for the black mist. Father! Ouyang Changqing cried out, but he was gone. The other two old-timers shared a nod and spoke as they flew. We'll lend Brother Ouyang a hand. All of you need to leave. Brother! Morong Shui shouted after him, but darkness already took him. The juniors looked at each other with clenched teeth, resolved to run away. They could not let their senior's effort go in vain. Zhuo Fan felt like he entered a new world, one of snow, ice and water. Is this Ice Mountain? Zhuo Fan was stern as mist formed while he was speaking. Chapter 1089, Heaven Sealing CAO. Chapter 1089, Heaven Sealing CAO. Proofreader, Papatonks. There were large swells turned into icy peaks as far as the Chao's eyes could see. She rubbed her freezing arms and said, Father, is this CAO's world, Ice Mountain? It's one of the 3 deadly danger zones that takes most lives. He turned his eyes from the white skies and the constant snowfall, to clear frozen sea, like a huge mirror. It glimmered with a mesmerizing luster, hiding the horrors beneath, of the thousands upon thousands of frozen bodies, contorted and appalling. Dragon Ancestor was right, CAO hates humanity to the bone. Any man-eating beast would just be following its nature and not toy with humans for one's twisted amusement. His heart is so sick it makes me wonder if he'll even let us talk. Father, don't forget about me. I'm no human. He's bound to listen to me, he. Qiao stuck out her head, putting on a cutely smug look. A creepy cackle echoed all around them in reply. Hi, all flee at the sign of my coming, yet you just came straight for me. Is it bravery or recklessness? It turns out that you knew my nature and came to find me. You also know the old dragon, I take it. He, this should be good. The two jerked and perked up as they nodded. They figured it had to be heaven-sealing CAO who spoke to have mentioned dragon ancestor like that. It showed some kind of friendship there. Maybe this won't be too hard. Since he came with words and not to attack, negotiations were still on the table. Senior CAO, I am Zhuo Fan. I have come at Dragon Ancestor's recommendation to ask Senior's help in saving my son. You will have my eternal gratitude. Zhuo Fan cupped his hands at the sky. CAO let another cackle, followed by his eerie voice, saving? Hi, why should I? If Dragon Ancestor sent you, then you know humans have cut me deeper than I could heal. Now a human has me trapped in this place, fearful of leaving lest the 5 swords turn me into a sieve. I and humanity are mortal enemies. No amount of killing will ever quench my hatred. And you came to me for help? What a cosmic joke, ha ha ha. No, Senior CAO, he is no human, but my brother. Chao rushed to explain. CAO taunted, he, thanks for reminding me, girl. Weren't you saying just moments ago that I'm bound to listen to you? You sure are cheeky, I'll give you that, ha ha ha. Do enlighten me then, where does that confidence stems from, when we don't even knowing each other? Old Dragon might have sent you, but that's no guarantee if I'll agree, humph. Senior CAO, I'm the future Thunder Phoenix. We're the same, you and I, help me now and I'll return the favor. Chao's cheeks went red, pondering for a moment before taking a soft approach. In this vast world, there's only 5 of us sacred beasts. We need to unite against the rampant humans. Heaven-sealing CAO was silent. But then it cackled again, little Thunder Phoenix, you only got Thunder Phoenix's legacy and had yet to fill her shoes. You certainly have no shame, calling yourself a sacred beast so soon. A sacred beast is the strongest beast. You, on the other hand, have a long way to go. All you have now is talent, yet you already see yourself on top. That's not a sacred beast style. It's more accurate to say it stinks of human cunning. You have gotten too close to them and have taken their foul demeanor. And you dare call yourself a sacred beast? Humph. Chao's heart shrank, turning to Zhuo Fan and shrugging. Little Thunder Phoenix, you came at the recommendation of the old dragon, but did he tell you to use his name when asking for my help? CAO roared. Zhuo Fan and Chao shook their heads. Senior Dragon Ancestor knows Senior CAO's deep and bitter hatred towards humans and wouldn't wish to force Senior into anything that you might be against. My only hope is that Senior would appeal to our honesty and help us. Shut it. Don't use human conscience on sacred beasts. You know nothing about us. Zhuo Fan's smooth words only earned CAO's lashing. Among the 5 great sacred beasts, I'm the closest to Old Dragon, but that doesn't mean I'll ever agree to any of his requests. Do you know why? Zhuo Fan shook his head, looking worried. Humph, for we, sacred beasts, are the peak of this world. We aren't like humans, living in societies, but roaming the lands by ourselves. There's nothing holding us together. The only reason Old Dragon sent you to me is because I can help, and not because he can persuade me to. The other 4 are no different. No appeal to our conscience will work, because we don't have one. Only humans, like you, small and weak, live through working together for the betterment of the group. For any one of you alone in this vast world is doomed to die. Strength comes from solitude, with no friends or companions. Zhuo Fan heard CAO's fervent speech and the fury behind as he continued, Little Thunder Phoenix, your tactic of warming up to me for your own goal is precisely how humans operate and not like us sacred beasts. You're not fit to be a sacred beast, one tainted by humanity such as you. Thunder Phoenix's spirit would be furious to know her legacy befell onto some human in beast clothing. I'll even bet she'd snap your neck. Bloodlust spiked then, flooding this world. The biting chill made even Chao shiver in fear. Cao wanted to kill her. Chao wobbled back while Zhuo Fan flashed in front to protect her. Things were far worse than he thought. Cao's hatred for humanity consumed him to the point he'll kill even sacred beasts with human air around them. He can't tolerate anything that has to do with humans, turning into a bigger problem. If it was just human hatred, any bloodlust would have been focused on Zhuo Fan, but he now included all related to humans as well. That includes Chao and young Sanzi, the one in desperate need of his healing. This is a serious problem with no answer. Should I leave young Sanzi in his care? Zhuo Fan was conflicted. Cao roared once more and Zhuo Fan froze. Then the Cao laughed, sounding nice for once. Ha ha ha, scared you, didn't I? Did you find my words frightening? Zhuo Fan had no idea what he was up to. Little Thunder Phoenix, I've only been telling you of how a sacred beast acts and hope you won't go against it. Otherwise, it won't matter much, since you can do whatever. That's how impulsive sacred beasts are, ha ha ha. Laughing like a madman, Chao shivered in frights. Cao then changed subjects. Who are you trying to save anyway? Mind letting me have a look at him? Zhuo Fan and Chao shared a glance and the former touched his ring hesitantly. Cao read him like a book, smiling, worried about little old me. Ha ha ha, you should. I'm at bitter war with humanity and won't be caught dead helping a human. But like Little Thunder Phoenix said, we're sacred beasts and there's only 5 of us in the entire world. We only have each other, like family, with every loss a heavy burden. When family comes asking for help, I'm duty-bound to help. That's what I get for being your uncle, of sorts, ha ha ha. Father, will you entrust brother's life to me? Chao turned to Zhuo Fan, he is the only one that can save brother. We have to trust him. I can tell from his words that he's sincere. You call that sincere? Did he not just use your own approach, after talking you down even? Zhuo Fan squinted, not following her request. Cao mocked, ha ha ha, humans and their suspicions. They came to ask for help yet still don't trust you. So many years have gone yet they never change. Humph, you can distrust me all you like, but since old dragon sent you, I won't make it harder on you. Go ahead and leave. With a hum, the space warped and a gap formed in the black mist behind the two, leading outside. Getting in was easy, while leaving was at heaven's ceiling Cao's whim. By doing this, he also showed the two he was of no threat to them. Father. Chao turned her hopeful eyes on him. This was a rare chance that might never come again. Cao's domain roamed, unlike dragon ancestors, drifting about North Sea. How were they to find him again? He can also avoid us as well, making our search pointless. This was the best chance to negotiate with Cao, maybe the only one. Chapter 1090, Malice. Chapter 1090, Malice. Proofreader, Papatonks. Who? A huge bird of hundreds of meters was perched on a cliff in Albeast mountain range, black as night and eyes like ice. On its head was a mote of azure flickering about, the chaos flame. Such a beast was being deferential. A tall man stood before it, taking his finger out of the azure flame, none other than vaulting Kunpeng. Cough. The huge bird coughed twice, then tested its human speech. Its eyes shone with joy, its face smiling as it bowed before the man. Thank you, master, for imparting me your wisdom. I shall never forget such kindness. I'm only doing this because I have a certain need for you. Kunpeng sighed, Midnight War Owl, you're a 9th-level imperial beast like 3 heads and I've been considering you along with it when I chose my aid. Now you shall represent me when leading the beasts. Shivering, Midnight War Owl looked baffled, and master, Brother 3 Heads said he'll be back soon. When it sees me, it... Ha, what a good friend you are. Kunpeng shook his head, it won't be joining us, I fear. That's why I had you take his place. Then brother. The azure flame I give you is my seal. I know its condition better than anyone. That old CAO spared no pretense, even taking down my aide. Then again, old dragon should feel the same thing about me, ha ha ha. Kunpeng paced around, turning to watch the clear moon hanging high in the sky. The thought of someone from the mortal domain making away with 3 heads never crossed his mind, not since it was a 9th-level imperial beast he raised, pinning all the blame on CAO. War Owl, CAO used to be the simplest and closest to humans among us 5 sacred beasts. But with deeper ties, the cut is deep once broken. He gave his sincerity and was rewarded with betrayal. Now his heart is filled with hatred, a malice he can't ever let go of. Zhuo Fan stands no chance in talking any sense to a vindictive lunatic. Ha ha ha, my own envoy got killed even. Now they only have themselves to rely on. Kunpeng's eyes had a strange glimmer as he watched the moon. War Owl sighed at the demise of his brother. It turned to the moon as well, its gaze laden with the pain of loss and just a glimmer of hope. 3 heads died in this mission. I only hope it is completed so its death won't be in vain. It prayed for Zhuo Fan to pull through. The bright moon glow basked every corner of Allbeast Mountain, as well as the chaotic war near the North Sea. It sent the prayer deep into the black fog and onto a pensive man. Should I trust him or not? Zhuo Fan was thinking hard on his decision, looking from the exit of CAO's domain to Chao's hopeful eyes. It might very well be his hardest decision yet. Facing a totally unfamiliar and untrustworthy opponent, he had no leverage to lean on, no control. Any choice had a real chance of ruining everything. By distrusting CAO, he and Chao would only avoid the problem, with a high chance of breaking it off with CAO here and now, never to meet again and leaving young Sanzi helpless. But by giving young Sanzi to him, CAO might take its fury and malice on young Sanzi. Zhuo Fan had heard it loud and clear, the true feelings CAO's earlier speech contained. Zhuo Fan was at an impasse, unable to see any viable option. Kid, I see you're hesitating so I won't force you. You can go. Father. CAO urged and Chao was being impatient. Whoosh. Zhuo Fan's eyes shot open just then and young Sanzi's unconscious form appeared in this world of ice. He wore a gentle smile, free of pain and suffering. Senior CAO, he is Qilin's son. I ask Senior to lend aid in saving his life. I will be eternally grateful. Qilin. How did his son become yours? CAO's voice echoed from all directions in surprise. Zhuo Fan cupped his hands, he is my godson and we depend on each other. Humph, godson. Heaven sealing CAO mocked, you even took him in. I can overlook taking the girl with the Thunder Phoenix's legacy, but now you have a true Qilin as godson. Planning on rearing them so you can one day rule the world? Hee, you sure know how to curry favor, taking them under your wing at their worst for you to use great sacred beasts when you need it most. You're the most deceitful human I've ever seen. Zhuo Fan did not refute, nodding, yes, those were my thoughts as well. Were? Don't tell me they're gone now. They are my son and daughter, nothing more. Lies. CAO howled, there's no wretched being out there as humans. They'll even turn on their flesh and blood, let alone others. You took them in so you can use them. Zhuo Fan chuckled and shook his head, I won't deny it. I had that idea. As a family, children ought to obey their parents, no? By not letting them come to danger and being close to one another, our bond as father and son remains close, and also virtuous. I don't hurt them but give them my love and care, completely worth it. Bullshit, you're just using them. The air shimmered and rumbling of avalanches were heard. CAO was mad, cunning human, you have nothing but excuses. Using such cheap love on sacred beasts like us is utterly vile. Chao was about to argue when Zhuo Fan shook his head to stop her. Zhuo Fan went on, casually, Senior CAO has been around since antiquity but still can't see that the world is always in balance. Even when it comes to love, I gave them a family, a father. It's only natural to give their lives in exchange. Now's no different. Save the Qilin and I am yours to send on any task Senior CAO wishes without so much as a complaint. Sir is now stuck in this place, like a prisoner. But worry not, I have the solution. It won't be long before the mortal domain will be broken and get you free. Seniors Kuanpeng and Dragon Ancestor are behind me all the way as well. You may distrust me, but what about them? Rotten human, always looking to bargain. Those old fools must be blind to put their trust in a bastard like you. I won't make that mistake. I never trusted a human again, not since I have been imprisoned here. Following the roar, a deep cold shot for Zhuofan's head. Chao shot to defend him but something slammed into her and was flung a mile away. Who? Biting and icy winds whistled past Zhuofan. Chao flipped 4 times before she could stop, looking stunned at the sight. Zhuofan was encased in ice, frozen and dead. There was no sign of life coming from him. He was stuck with his arm out, like all those stiff bodies trapped in the ice below them. Father. Chao muttered, then wailed at the top of her lungs, Father. Zhuofan was deaf in the block of ice, his eyes blank, his face flat. Hi hi hi. CAO cackled from all around, it's no use, little Thunder Phoenix. When I seal a human, even their souls are trapped. He's no different from a corpse, unable to see or hear. With time, his life will ebb, turning into another one of my samples, hi hi hi. Damn it. Heaven sealing CAO, give my father back now. Chao shook from pain, her heart torn. Rage took her then as she roared at the air, harm him in any way and I vow to take your life. Hi hi hi, how spunky. CAO patronized, little Thunder Phoenix, I can squash you as easy as a bug the way you are now. But even in your prime, no sacred beast can beat another anyway, ha ha ha. Why you? However. CAO switched tunes when she began, you have a choice. Didn't you come to save the young Qilin? You now get to decide who lives and dies, the human or the Qilin. Hi hi hi. Chapter 1091, Choice. Chapter 1091, Choice. Proofreader, Papatonks. What? Chao shuddered, looking between Zhuofan's frozen figure in ice and young Sanzi on the snow, barely breathing. He, what's there to think about, little Thunder Phoenix? CAO's bewitched, you said it yourself, there are only 5 great sacred beasts, that we're a family. The Qilin will die along with this young Qilin. While this filthy human has been using you. It's obvious then. You only have to nod and I will make mincemeat out of his corpse. Then the Qilin can be saved, ha ha ha. Chao gave a stiff shake, her eyes turning red as she choked, no, he's my father. I don't want him to die. I take it you'll be saving the human over the Qilin? CAO's snicker once again echoed, having a blast in her torment and weaving deceit, then take the human while I'll have young Qilin for dinner, he. How could you? You're a sacred beast too. How can you harm brother? And you aren't? Why then do you choose a human over him? Chao was stuck, unable to reply as she looked between her father and brother with pain and sorrow. Whoosh! 4 figures then flashed in her eyes, led by the best in mortal domain, the invincible sword. Looking at the prevalent white and the boundless ice, Bailey Yuyun was baffled, that's strange, we've been running around the mist forever. Where did we end up this time? Why is there a world in the black mist? Patriarch, do you know anything about this place? It feels familiar. I seem to have heard about it once. Bailey Yutian frowned, looking just as puzzled at the ice and snow, but then he noticed someone. He shot straight for Chao with Sword Kings in tow. Lass, why are you alone? Where's Sir Zhua? Chao's lip quivered, pointing with bleary eyes and a frail voice, "There." The four flinched as they saw Zhuo Fan encased in ice. What on earth? What happened to Sir Zhuo? Anne. They then looked down and noticed the sea ice below them holding scores of bodies. Bailey Yuyun turned to Chower in panic. "Girl, you wanted to come here, right? Then you must know where we are." Dad called it Ice Mountain. Chower strained to speak through her pain. "It's what everyone is calling it. One of the 3 danger zones, Ice Mountain. SSS. Bailey Yuyun gasped, his heart stuck in his throat as the news scared the life out of him. Anyone knew that no one came out of the 3 danger zones alive, and now they ran into one. The 3 Sword Kings were now tearing up as well, lamenting their fate. That was why the brash and cocky lass turned so meek and distraught. Anyone would cry in this heaven-forsaken place. The invincible sword found his predicament amusing though. "Ha ha ha, I've been roaming around for thousands of years and yet never stumbled upon any danger zone, only now ran into it. Though what makes this place so bad to be called a danger zone? Lass, what's so dangerous about it?" Bailey Yuyun got the hint and turned to ask Chower. In such a bad place, being in the dark as to what might attack them was the biggest danger. Chower sniffed, pointing at Zhuo Fan. "In other words, that's the danger, so watch it." Bailey Yuyun bobbed his head and asked, "How did Sir Zhuo turn up like that?" From the looks of it, the Ice Mountain made it very easy for one to end up sealed. The problem is how. Chower was the only one to see it happen to Zhuo Fan, and so the Sword Kings got over their rivalry and asked. "Humph, it's obviously the work of that wretched heaven-sealing CAO. Heaven-sealing CAO, the hell is that?" "The North Sea Demon." Chower rolled her eyes with a huff. The 3 exclaimed. "The Sea Demon sealed the crafty punk." Bailey Yutian's eyes shone, the thirst for battle reignited. He looked around and shouted, "Sea Demon, I've long heard of you and have come for a challenge." Patriarch. The Sword Kings looked tense at Invincible Sword, sweat trickling down their brow. The Sea Demon was famed for its savagery, and challenging it before knowing its strength was ill-advised. "Patriarch, you just finished fighting a 9th-level Imperial Beast and are exhausted. You'll only be worse for wear if it turns out the Sea Demon is to be at the same level. Best you rest a couple of days then challenge again for best chances." The strong had a powerful drive to challenge the stronger. The Invincible Sword was called such because he had been through countless deadly fights, but always prevailing. Where was the challenge in fighting a winning battle? The old guy had a nasty temper too, eager to throw himself into the fray against the Sea Demon, regardless of its power. "Sea Demon, I'm the strongest in the 5 lands, the Invincible Sword. Show yourself now, or are you afraid? Ha ha ha, then you should be running back to the sea, not coming to shore. Hi, yokels are the most ignorant." CAO's creepy voice crackled, "I'd have turned all you humans to pieces if it weren't for that heaven-sealing barrier. Now someone comes to run their mouths? You have a death wish." Bailey Yutian's eyes shone, resolved to fight no matter what. "Anyone can talk, but hardly anyone can put their money where their mouth is and fight me. Stop hiding like a coward and yap along. That's the way of the weak. You call yourself strong? Hi. Heaven-sealing CAO laughed louder, "Foolish human, if you're strong, the crickets and bugs ought to kill themselves in shame, ha ha ha." Bailey Yutian turned cold, brandishing the sundering sword as he shouted, "Sea Demon, enough talking. Show your face if you dare, so I can kill you." "The sundering sword?" The Sea Demon cried, "So that's why, you're the sundering sword's successor." Bailey Yutian spoke coldly, "I've been using the sundering sword's art for thousands of years, reaching perfection. Scared? Ha, scared? That swordsmanship can't harm me. The scared one should be Little Thunder Phoenix. The 5 sacred weapons might look intimidating, but they hold no sway in my domain. Human, you shouldn't have brought it along." Hi. Bailey Yutian was perplexed. He, so you don't know. The sword is divine, but your strength is unable to unleash its potential. For the divine swords to restrain us, they need sacred stones. Now, you no longer have that chance. What's that supposed to mean? Bailey Yutian shouted. Rumble. The world shook and the distant mountains of ice and snow crumbled. It was like an omen, that a demon was clawing its way out of hell. You'll be staying here, along with the sword, hi hi hi. The rumbling grew more intense, like the world was about to crumble. Even Bailey Yutian began to sweat, his heart seizing. Outside the domain, Ouyang Lingtian, Murong Lai and Shengwan Feixiong used their divine swords as lanterns to ward off the black mist that prevented them from advancing, each shining in its own light. The three had red faces and gnashed their teeth, their bodies stretched taut as they strained themselves. With a sudden boom, the entire mist exploded, the shockwave flung back the trio and shook their insides till they coughed blood. The divine swords fell from their hands and into the mist. Our swords! They cried to no avail. The swords were gone and they were too weak to chase. They were helpless to even stop the shockwave from sending them into buildings until they fainted. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.